I'm tired of shit calling quits. Niggas is stressing me, got me ready to commit a motherfucking crime. I write a rhyme to clear my mind, but shit has got so thick I'm making choices with my nine. No bitches just calling, I'm never folding. Got no money, can't depend on my woman because the people acting fun. Plus I live with my mama and all the drama got me stressed. Got me walking through school, ready to break a nigga neck. Well, shit never change, just what I'm thinking in my head. All these negative thoughts, it's got me reaching for my neck. Am I better off dead? That's what I'm screaming. Then I shout. Now my mom just make fussing to put a nigga out. I wanna die from shells is what I'm feeling and reload. Can somebody tell me how many bullets bodies hold? When will it be when I finally collect the salary? Don't label me gangster because I'm rapping about reality. Having dreams and niggas busting that. Got me on top of my shit. Find on any nigga touching that. So fuck the law, fuck the government, and fuck the Constitution. All these bitch ass poppers, but ain't got no damn solution. Carrying Glocks, crooked cops and all shit. Bitch niggas is trying to use me for target. All stress is putting weed in my chest. How can I solve them? Yo, what's the answer to my problems? I'm at the bottom of the barrel, looking for choices, no remorse for the death. How many times can I rewind all my thoughts? Thinking of deadly visions of bullets and body parts. What does it mean? The occupation of the green, copping the cream. Ain't got no lumps in my jeans, plotting the scheme. I'm no gon' pay souls and funds too. So I called him my homie Nina to see what the fuck he wanna do. He said nothing, nigga, what's up with you? I said shit, nigga, let's hit a lick. My collateral's looking sick and life is a bitch. Until you die, let's take a ride to see the side where these bullets fly. I seen a nigga walking with his bitch, peeping his game by the inch, knowing when he flinched. Bet I cocked the Glock, now the beef is on. Throw on the skinny mask, I'm on a mission for the cash. Hey you, strutting over there, let that bitch go, throw your hands in the air. Why? Motherfucker, cause I said so, don't make the lid. Step in them gyms and get some blood on your shell toes. Empty them pockets right now. Bitch, don't make a sound on your man kissing grind. Almost forgot to change you. Thank you for getting me high all week, buying me bloody drinks. What a nigga think? Yo, it's war for revolution. All these bitch ass problems, but ain't got no damn solution. Carrying Glocks, crooked cops and all shit. Bitch niggas just trying to use me for target. All the stress is putting weed in my chest. How can I solve them? Yo, what's the answer to my problems? Carrying Glocks, crooked cops and all shit. Bitch niggas just trying to use me for target. All the stress is putting weed in my chest. How can I solve them? Yo, what's the answer to my problems?
The soulful sounds of Detroit, Michigan. Blessings to the people. Greatly appreciate you. We're live from Detroit. We're doing some things. And especially in terms of looking at, Browns boys not joining. Tisk, tisk. You just gonna chat it up. Old chatty over here. All right. Blessings to the people. We're going to be reviewing a video called He Studied Every Religion. This one came closest to the truth. Neurojack's contention is that this video promotes transhumanism. And Avian Buddha's perspective is that there is some value to this video beyond that it does not promote transhumanism, and there's a useful section on dual aspect monism, which is a philosophical, metaphysical point of view that is also shared by our teachers. Oh, whoops. Sorry. Put that away here. Put this up here. Blessings. And we'll get started with this review and see what this video is about.
And if you guys will indulge me, how's my audio, by the way?
It's pretty good.
Okay. So let me just indulge me for a moment. I want to give you a little background on some of these people, just so like you can so it makes a little sense of like where I'm coming from. And again, this is not to like say that I'm right. It's just to kind of give a little bit of you know, angle, because I know the avian's angle is going to come through very strongly, especially when we get to that second part. So I just want to put my biases up front. So if my biases are shown, it's shown exactly why I'm biased, but also perhaps my perspective could be skewed, right? So I want to put that up front, and because there is a high likelihood that my bias is going to be very strong in this particular thing, because it's something that I did, you know, try to study for you know, briefly, but it's been kind of like the focal point of my quote unquote philosophical project, end quote. You know, so you know, something I've tried to like blow the whistle on, I would say. So I just want to make sure that's clear that like I'm extremely biased about this subject. So so let me look up the host of the show really quick, because I think he went to Rice University, but I'm not exactly sure. Jonathan Bai, about. So this guy was raised between. So I'm going to talk about the host first. Raised between Beijing and Vancouver. I spent my formative years training in mathematics. He was a computer philosophy and computer science at Columbia. And he's a Buddhist as well. But he also mentions that Rene Girard had a big part of his belief structure. And I can put the link to this if you guys want in the back. This is what he's writing about himself. I'll give you the link on the back. Hold on, I'll put it in the back right here, just so you guys see that I'm not like just making this up off the top of my head. And then so he says that trained in continental philosophy, my primary interests are thinkers who focus on the social side of human nature: Plato, Augustine, Hume, Hegel, Rousseau, Nietzsche, and Girard. Specifically, I'm interested in the relationship between sociality and rationality, the compatibility of the contemplative and active life, the social preconditions of truth, and the roles of mimesis, which is Rene Girard, in normative judgments and religious faith. I've also become interested in the philosophy of technology. I practiced in a Tibetan monastery, and so he's a very serious Buddhist, apparently. And then he says here, he says, at the end of this thing, he says, I consider entering the real world necessary. I'm suspicious that it is also a worthy destination. Perhaps I've internalized Dante's critique of Odysseus. Wandering forms character, but one can wander too far. So again, I just wanted to put that might be his angle. The guy he's talking to is named Jeffrey Kripal, or whatever his name. I don't know how to pronounce it, but he is the chair in philosophy and religious thought at Rice University. So I guess he's like pretty high up, with a doctoral concentration on Gnosticism, esotericism, and mysticism. His works include comparative erotics and ethics in mystical literature, American counterculture, translations of Asian religions, and the history of Western esotericism from Gnosticism to New Age religions. He is the founder of Archives of the Impossible, which is a special collection at Rice University. It stewards collections on UFO and paranormal subjects, including Jacques Vallée and declassified United States Army Stargate project materials. Blah 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 blah. You get the idea. Okay, so this guy's like a heavy paranormal enthusiast guy. So again, I'm just putting all that out front. His first book was called Kali's Child: The Mystical and Erotic Life and Teachings of Ramakrishna. Taking a psychoanalytical approach. And there's a lot of shit in here. So again, I'll send you guys his Wikipedia. And then I have one more thing to read just to let you know kind of where I'm coming from, because I had a suspicion that he may have connection to someone named Timothy Morton, who is kind of this big promoter of something called object ontology or something like that. And that's another
Yeah, it's Heideggerian philosophy.
right, which in my opinion basically like conflates like immaterial versus material. So he's saying like, well, a grain of sand is just as like, important as a human being or something like that, or something that's alive, and that he's kind of saying that like, a grain of sand has the same rights as like a bird or a human or something like that. So
It's kind of
I
like
think,
Axis Rap Blood too.
yeah, so there's a whole thing. So I kind of use the AI to kind of ask like, okay, so does this guy have a relationship with him? And it says the connection can be broken down in three areas. um so Timothy Morton's an English chair, and this guy's a philosophy and religious thought chair. So I guess they both work at the same university. They engage in public intellectual dialogue.
Well, we kind of heard
Yeah,
from inside sources that Giorgiani promotes this guy Timothy Morton or something like that, right?
yeah, they have some sort of close relationship with Morton and Giorgiani. So again, this is kind of like my suspicion, and obviously Giorgiani is extremely transhumanist as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I could be wrong, but somebody wants to correct me. Like that's how I would characterize his work. I mean, but I think you'll see because I kind of asked for a summary of their beliefs on some of this, but I'll just briefly say this really quick. So they seem to overlap in the realm of the eerie and the uncanny. So Morton has publicly cited Krapel's book The Flip as an influential work that bridges the gap between hard science and human consciousness. Non-human intelligence, both scholars explore ideas to challenge traditional materialism. For instance, they have discussed how figures like Alan Turing viewed the limits of artificial intelligence through the lens of telepathy and consciousness. Morton refers to Kripal as a pal or friend in public writing, and so they're definitely related somehow. And I asked them. So the question I asked, I said, "What's the relationship between these two subjects in bioethics and transhumanism?" And it says that they share something they call superhumanities. While they're skeptical of the mainstream Silicon Valley led transhumanism, they propose an alternative that focuses on consciousness rather than silicon chips, which, by the way, I would agree with them on that to some degree. So again, I may actually agree with them more than I'm comfortable with in some regard, but I'm not sure. I just wanted to, again, that's why I'm putting all this out front. So, if I'm misconstruing what they're saying, it should become pretty evident pretty quickly. So, both scholars critique transhumanism as being too materialist, meaning it focuses almost entirely on hardware, implants, life extension, AI. So his perspective, Kripal argues that humans have always been transhuman, and so basically they're trying to move everything towards superhumanism, which basically leans on consciousness. Timothy Morton's perspective approaches this through object-oriented ontology. They argue that human is not a stable, closed-off category. Instead, we are already cyborgs because we are constantly entangled with non-human things, bacteria, tools, climate. So Morton is wary of transhumanism as it serves a way for the wealthy to escape the planet or their biological responsibilities. So then they have bioethics and the ecology of the soul. So they're pushing like a very strange, like ecological term of this specifically through bioethics. In the realm of bioethics, the relationship moves away from standard medical checklists towards a metaphysical ethics. So decentering the human. Traditional bioethics often ask, what's good for the human? Morton and Kripal ask, what is the human anyways? Morton's bioethics is deeply ecological, suggesting that we have a moral obligation to non-human persons, animals, ecosystems, and even AI. Which again, like in general, I kind of agree, but how far you take that, like I would say that humans still have to play like a primary role personally, but I get their argument. the
Yeah,
ethics
and
of
this is why
yeah.
Scorbina is so important, right? Because he deals with all of these issues through the lens of uh basically a critique of the technological system, right? So we're lucky enough to have, you know, just knowledge about somebody that has basically dealt with all these issues, right? And then can, because all this shit, like in terms of the ethical domain and what are the rights of inanimate objects and things like that, right? That's something that Scorbina's touched on in his anthologies, right? So,
Yeah,
like,
and
yeah,
yeah, and again, I kind of agree with some of this, and I'll just read this last part here. It says the ethics of altered states. Kripal explores the ethics of extraordinary experiences. He argues that bioethics should account for extreme states of being, such as near-death experiences or mystical encounters, treating them not as hallucinations to be medicated, but as valid states of knowledge that deserve ethical considerations and protection. So again, in general terms, I kind of agree with this framing, but when the rubber meets the road, I have a strong sense that I may fear that what they're inadvertently doing is laying the groundwork to justify transhumanist goals via their, philosophical project, in my opinion. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So I just want to make that very clear. So I'm not totally straw manning them, right? So like,
yeah,
it's kind of like, maybe their chicken is gonna like lay the egg that leads to transhumanism or something. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. But go ahead.
yeah. Just one thing that they're seeing is that all of these ideas, like for example, ethics has metaphysical implications, right? Whether or not we want to admit this, where scientific discoveries do have, metaphysical and ethical implications. Right. So it's good that they're tying these things together, but also we have to keep in mind that they're doing so to support a narrative, right? And possibly in order to support the status quo, right, of the techno industrial civilization. Right. So it could be that, they're, sort of, taking a real look at these things, but it's apparent that they're trying to drive a different type of narrative, one that allows for a large portion of this, right? Like for example, um, instead of moving towards a greater sense of humanism, right, they're discarding the human altogether, right? Because humanistic understanding is what we've lost, right? So, I mean, if they're going to turn human beings into machines and, we're thinking about how to give rights to inanimate objects, then obviously we've lost a lot of ground, right? So, the fact is that the depersonalization of man due to the use of machines, right? That's an ethical issue on its own, right? And if we're going to, basically cede the ground to people that are already looking at, like nature in this sort of post-human mindset, right? Then,
Yeah, I mean, say something. I would say
of course, yeah,
95% of the thinkers now, at least 95%, probably 98%, uh, depending on how we view things, almost practically all of them support the status quo and technological growth.
right,
Yeah, but even if they do that, which I disagree with, they could be right about some things. You know what I mean? Like I do agree with
right,
being critical of materialism or physicalism. You know what I mean? Like Bernardo Castrap, or David Scribina. They're both against the growth of the materialism. But Scribina is unique in that he also attacks the valuation of the technological growth. You know what I mean? So that's what makes Scribina very unique. And these are like they're all questions are ultimately interrelated in some sense. You know what I mean? Like all the deepest questions, like they're interrelated in some ways. But when we deal with certain questions, we can't like have all those interrelations at once. We have to sometimes, isolate some pockets of the questions and then endeavor to answer those. Now, that's kind of what I do. Like the question of technological growth, I read Frederick George Younger, I read Skrbina, I read Teddy, I read, a little, I read all these thinkers. There are still more I need to read. But overall, I see technological growth negatively. I see it negatively. It leads to the very complications it claims it can solve. It consumes a lot of resources and other stuff. Now, in regards to certain metaphysical questions, like the question of Buddhism, okay, Buddhism as a tradition versus metaphysics. I have Buddhist friends, and even in Buddhism, there is variation in the teaching. Same with the Christians. You had Dan Scotus, you had lots of different Christian thinkers throughout the ages. And not all of them were in universal consensus. That's why the traditions came up. Or schools, the schools. The schools then codified and standardized the teaching. But overall, Christianity, at least as we know it now, is defined by two features. It's defined by incarnation and resurrection of Christ. Okay, the incarnation and resurrection of Christ. If you don't accept those, then you're not a Christian, as far as I can see it. You accept incarnation and resurrection. Now, for Mahayana, people should know, for Zen, what are the two most important things for Zen? And that is prajna paramita, which means the insight that all things lack a fixed independent essence. Okay, that's what prajna paramita means. Insight that all things lack a fixed independent essence. And the second one is direct realization of one's original Buddha nature, or the true nature of their mind. Awakening comes from seeing reality without clinging to concepts like ego or appearances. Okay, those two things you have to accept to be a Zen Buddhist, and that's the core of my tradition. Okay, the Soto and Rinzai lineages. Okay, everything else is like, even Christians debate with each other, even Muslims debate with each other, but even Buddhists debate with each other. But conventionally speaking, there's a core. Now, I don't really want to watch this video. Okay, I do think there could be social engineering with it. You made a good point, Hiroshak. You pointed out to some interesting stuff. But the thing is, I've reached the point where I read books. I have my own views, and I reject Christianity personally. I reject Islam too. I'm a Buddhist. Okay, you see, I have my own views and stuff. There are, the thing about Buddhism is science doesn't contradict it as much. But there are some areas that, some scientific like quantum physics, like Bell's theorem. Okay, I see that as like, pointing to dependent origination. There's no independent fixed cell. There is no independent fixed cell. You see what I'm saying? But you're free to disagree, though. Yeah, I don't really want to watch this video. Like, it's just too long and stuff. But I think his stuff on, which I was seeing on dual aspect monism, is interesting, because I don't think mind is reducible to brain activity. I don't think mind is just an epiphenomenon of brain activity. Like, it's like steam or fume coming out of the brain. It's actually, I think mind is, either implicit in all phenomenon, it's intrinsic in all phenomena, or mind is the foundation of reality. I lean more towards idealism. I think mind is empty, but at the same time, that means it's not one, not two, but it's like the foundation of reality. But it's like, it's not something you can grasp. It's not like there's a determinate ground of it. So yeah, we have some people here who are more deep in philosophy. They will probably debate that. Well, like one of them, he has a strong argument against that. But the point I'm making is that the philosophy, I agree with Skrbina's argument from non-emergentism. See, mind is qualitatively different from the physical. You can go into the brain and look at it. It's like a mill. It's like you can look at it like a mill. You don't see the mind when you look at it. It's called Leibniz's mill thought experiment. You look at the brain, you look at the all the wiring, or like gears in motion, but you don't see the mind. Like, I can like poke into your brain or my brain, I don't see the mind, basically. So either mind is latent in all phenomenon, or it's the basis of phenomenon. How can the physical, which is all like, give rise to something so ontologically different from it? That means that's the argument from non-emergentism. It's inconceivable, in my opinion. It's inconceivable that you can have like something so ontologically different, you know, it arises from that, you know. So it must either be latent or concurrent with all physical processes to some extent. You know, I'm actually probably smarter than both of these people, to be honest with you. You know, talking to me is worth more than listening to people like that. But you need to ask questions and take what I'm saying seriously and stuff like that. And this is why I say reading a book, reading 50 pages of a good book is worth more than listening to hundreds of hours of idiots like these people talk. You know, that's what I mean. Like, let me see here. What's going on? Yeah, but I was gonna read something here. The argument from non-emergent, isn't it? Non-emergent. I like that argument a lot. Stuff like I'm a better writer. You know, it is inconceivable that mind should emerge from a mind in which no mind existed. Therefore, mind always existed, even in even the simplest of structures. You know, so that's the argument from non-emergent. I would say another argument is that mind is, I don't know, like non-abiding awareness, or it's like a field, or dhamma dhatu of reality too. That's another one. That makes mind more prior, like a universal consciousness or something like that. Maybe, you know, that's another option. You know, idealism and panpsychism are different, but they're not mutually exclusive. You know, idealism and panpsychism. You know, that's actually another good topic to talk about, like comparing idealism and panpsychism, and you know how they're mutual. But yeah, it's true that you see, my friend Slovenian, he was a panpsychist, alright, not kind of, but he was a transhumanist, my Slovenian friend. But I was arguing with him for over 6 to 8 years. And you know, that guy is a genius almost. TML actually shared one of his videos before. He was talking about Aristotle. He was talking about, I think so, Hegel. He was mainly talking about Hegel and Jacob Boehm and some of those people and stuff. Like the superhuman crap and the Iselin Institute and all that, it probably ties into Hegel. But now let's think about this more slowly. I don't agree with their transhumanist crap, but even if like a serial killer tells you not to drink the bleach, he's still right. Okay, but he's a bad person. But the point I'm making is you got to look at the contents of arguments deeply. When you look at the contents of arguments deeply, like I did from my Slovenian friend, you see they say some truths, but and sometimes they even have logically robust arguments, but you can make your own arguments against them, or you can find fallacies in their arguments and stuff like that. So about how they're twisting Buddhism, they're twisting Christianity too, they're twisting Buddhism, they're twisting Hinduism. Pretty much all traditions in the modern world are being twisted in service of technique. Okay, that was my initial point too. Okay, so do we have to watch this? Like really, like we can talk, or
Well, let's watch some of it at least. I mean, I think we could skip the intro, but like let's watch it. Like I watched up to 55, from like 20 to 55, and then you have your section that you want to watch. I mean, let's just review some of it at least, so we can get a gist of like what they're arguing and how they're arguing, and then we can bounce off of that. That's what I would say would be best, so we can use them as like a conversation starter and see where we agree and disagree. Because like the thing is, again, I kind of agree with their general like premise. I just don't. I'm very skeptical of like their intention, right? So, and I think that I have good reason to be skeptical of their intention for sure.
Yeah, we're kind of already here now. But yeah, blessings to, I guess, not that many people are watching, but yeah, nevertheless.
I sent the link out in the Discord, but I don't know.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Okay, so we'll see what.
If anybody else wants to send it out, then please do. But
yeah, so okay, so let's see what's up. I'll speed this up to 125. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, and I think you can skip the intro because they have like a long intro. If you look on the timestamps, there's like I don't know. I mean, it'd probably be worth it, but I know that Avian doesn't really want to, so I don't want to keep him longer than he wants to.
Yeah,
I would like to get through the stuff. So for me, it doesn't bother me. I could do the whole 5 hours if we have time, but I don't think we have 5 hours.
So this section says against Western monotheism. So that's going to be interesting, right? So let's see what happens.
Yeah, and again, that's kind of what I'm I'm not really triggered by somebody being against it, but like the way in which he goes about arguing against it, like he does a whole in my opinion, from what I remember of him, his argument is he does a whole whataboutism, right? So what about this and what about that? So he says that to like go against, monotheism, and then he smuggles in all these like consequences of monotheism into his arguments, in my opinion. So again, this is kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and they seem to have rented out a dining hall of sorts where people conduct their wedding ceremonies. You can see the exit sign up there on the corner, so that's pretty strange. But all right.
Welcome to the club. That's my problem. I believe too much, as it were. One of the things that I grew up Roman Catholic in the American Midwest, and the claim was always that, well, the Catholic Church is right because miracles only exist in the Catholic faith, and that's just not.
Oh shit! The Jesuits.
Yeah, and again, the Timothy Morton guy who he's friends with is a gay transgender Catholic, and this other guy is a Buddhist, but he says that he's extremely influenced by Rene Girard, the Catholic. So again, there's like a there's a whole underlying structure of Catholicism.
You see, I have some friends, that I don't really condone like the kind of shit they do, but like I told you, I have a friend. He's a Slovenian and he's a transhumanist. I have another friend. He lives in the rural South. He's into femboys and transsexuals, but I still consider him a friend, even though I'm not into that stuff. You see what I mean? It's that it's guilty by association should be avoided, in my opinion. I see, I can be friends with people I disagree with. You know what I mean? It's
okay, I get it. Let's just go by what they say. So let's go.
Yeah, I just noticed there's an option to turn the screen black and white on StreamYard. So that's probably why more people have been appearing in black and white. So yeah.
True.
Right. Empirically, that's
just not true. And when you study comparative religion, you learn that there are actually miracles everywhere and always, as it were, as far as we can see back and everywhere we can see. And so the question for me isn't whether to be religious, as it were, it's how to be religious. And the problem is religious identity. It's not that there aren't things happening. It's not that there aren't miracles happening. It's that those ethical systems get built up through very elaborate social and political and economic channels. And I grew up inside a tradition, and I don't have a problem with Catholicism per se, but I know that its ethical systems have histories.
You know how the sausage is made.
I know. I know that for a fact. And I know that what the ethical systems are, what the Catholic ethical systems are, have an inside and an outside. And I know that they're very different on the inside than they're on the outside. And my assumption, which I think is perfectly true, is that the same is true everywhere. And once you reduce religion to ethics, I think you're done. I think.
Okay, so that I think is totally false, right? I don't think religions can be reduced to ethical systems, right? I think ethics is philosophy, right? And if you move into the ethical domain, right, I think he's confusing ethics with morals, right? And there's a certain idea in which morality, may be tied to more of, maybe some type of a principle where it's based on a general sense of goodness, right? Whereas ethics would be why you would derive those moral principles, right? So ethics is functioning on a different level than the common sense morality, right? Functions. And the common sense morality is way more derived from religious values than from philosophical or ethical values, right? So that's first and foremost, right? So I think he's totally false in saying that once you extract ethics from religion, then you're done, right? I think that is basically a wrong-headed approach, right? But
Yeah, well, there are two branches of ethics. One is meta ethics, which is, you know, like what the moral claims mean, you know, like whether moral truth really exists, such as whether good is objective, subjective, emotional, or socially constructed. You know, that's meta ethics. Then there is normative ethics, which studies what people ought to do by developing like moral principles or theories, such as utilitarianism, deontology, or virtue ethics. But I would agree that, you know, both branches of ethics get their basis in metaphysics. You know, I think metaphysics is kind of, you know, prior to ethics, like kind of determines and shapes the ethics in some sense, whether meta ethics or normative ethics. I think so. So I would say so.
yeah, and I think it's just you know, maybe all traditions may have miracles, but not all of them place the same level of importance on miracles. And of course, their cosmological and metaphysical viewpoint that's completely divorced from any philosophical form of understanding, right? That precedes the development of their views, right? So that's the fact, is that, you know, miracles or you know, moral principles, they don't need to be reasoned over, right? When they're presented in terms of religious values, right? And they do need to be reasoned over when they're presented in terms of philosophical justifications, right? So not everybody who follows religious moral principles follows a philosophical ethic, right? That's by and large the case, right? I think most people that follow religions, they're unaware of how either philosophy has contributed to the religious outlook, or how religions have shaped and molded philosophical viewpoints throughout history, right? Because both have happened, right? But the fact is that philosophy tries to form its own justification apart from religion. And the God of the philosophers is often a different being than the God of the their co-religionists, right? So I don't know. So I just feel like he's on a totally like he's on a weird trip here, right? But
Well, and I would just say really briefly, like he's kind of smuggling in Western Western secular ethics, but then later he says like, well, I deny material, but I'm also trying to smuggle in the consequences of secular humanism, materialism, but then he puts all that on Christianity as if Christianity itself did that without any help. And so it's kind of like he's doing a multi-layer thing, in my opinion, and I don't know exactly how to describe it, but
Well-
that's kind of what I was getting at. So
well, he said two things. I think it's pretty simple. He said two things. He said one thing. He said that you can compare the miracles of Catholicism to the miracles of every religious tradition, and then you can condense every religious tradition into its ethical framework, and then you can dispense with the religion as a result of that. I think in both cases he's false, right? I think both cases it's wrong, right? I think in the first case, I don't think the miracles of Christianity, right, translate to the miracles of other traditions because they assume a different metaphysics and a different cosmological framework, and I don't think that ethical frameworks need be explored when talking about moral principles within religious frameworks, and I think I explained both of those. So I think so far he's 0 for 0, right?
It's not even interesting at that point. So this is a different conversation.
Yeah.
Whether truth is ethical at all,
Right.
and whether those categories even make sense. I'm not saying it's unethical. I'm saying it's truth is beyond good and evil, to use Nietzsche's language or the Upanishadic language. I mean, I really don't think it's ethical or moral in a social or egoic sense.
Right. We're going to talk about your methodology of new comparativism.
Okay, so there is this weird idea or categorization of truth not being ethical, right? So not only are religions useless until we figure out their ethical precepts, right? And then we could basically dispense with the religion, but truth is superior to ethics, right? So he's made both claims, right? Which is interesting, right? And I don't know if normal people can get behind those claims, right? Certainly we benefit more from ethics than we do from quote unquote truth, right? But the fact is that, you know, the search for truth underlies, you know, all ethical and moral justifications, right? So the fact is that you can't, I think Nietzsche's wrong, right? You can't separate these two things. I think the categorizations themselves are false, right? I think the truth, in one way, is the same thing as the ethical, but you know, we just don't see it. And I think ethics precedes truth. I think he's false, right? That he's saying that, you know, because what matters more is if the people around you have ethics or do they have truth, right? Certainly, you would demand that they have ethics first, right? So, I mean, I just think I think it precedes truth in every sense, right?
Yeah, like without ethics, you don't have a environment that will foster truth because the incentive to tell the truth would not exist. I would say.
Values precede knowledge. If you don't value the truth, if you don't say that seeking the truth is justified above all other things, right? You know, even justified beyond taking care of your family or anything like that. You know, I mean, it's just wild, right? Obviously, you have to justify these things, right? So I don't know where he's getting at, right? Values and knowledge, right? Values are more important than knowledge, right? Ethics are more important than truth. I don't know. All right. That's just I don't know. I've said that for years, so I don't know.
And looking between the religions, I still think I'm still at the stage of examining each Orthodox tradition to see if any of them can be true.
Yeah.
For the following reason.
They're all true, by the way.
Well, the Orthodox reading of the Orthodox religions.
Yeah.
The Orthodox and exclusivist claims.
I know. They all say we're the only truth. Or
right.
We're the ultimate truth.
Or the ultimate, yeah,
Yeah.
after Vatican II and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And so my question is, the problem I have right now, right? Again, it's not, I found this great contradiction within a tradition. It's that they're equivalent. But that equivalent doesn't mean that one of them is necessarily wrong. Right? And so I also don't want to draw the opposite conclusion. So my question is, why are you so certain that?
What does that even mean? They're equivalent. They're certainly not equivalent. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we could certainly believe more readily that, I don't know, that if sons of gods exist, there probably wasn't a lot of them throughout history. Right? I don't know. You know, so I think the less miracles, the more believable at this point. For example, I don't know. You know, and there are religions that say, like, well, you know, like, for example, right, Islam, right? It's like basically the prophet didn't really have that many, like, great miracles or whatever like that. You know, I don't really know about Buddha doing a bunch of miracles. Is that the case?
Yeah, the Pali Canon, it talk about how he gets like telekinetic powers and some psychic abilities. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's necessarily a miracle.
Yeah,
that might just be like if you reach Buddha nature, you might be able to see things clearly, like before they happen, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like telekinesis, psychic powers, stuff like that.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess that's less miraculous. So I would say that's more believable as a result, right? Because we live in an age where people doubt miracles, and you know, something like Buddhism or Islam would be more believable to people because the prophet's not really going around and doing a bunch of miracles. I don't know. Even he's just like, you know, like telling people to do things, right? So I don't know, do things that everybody does today. So I don't know.
One of the Orthodox, like maybe the Christians just got it right. Maybe everyone else is a demon or a lesser revelation. Why are you so sure that's wrong?
I've spent my whole life looking at different religious systems, and that is a conclusion I've drawn, or that is an intuition, that all of these religious systems give people something, and they do different things, and they lead to different ends, but none of them are ultimate in the sense we're talking.
Yeah, I mean, how do you have a degree in esotericism? That strikes me as a little weird, right? Doesn't esoteric mean hidden? How would you acquire a degree in hidden knowledge? That doesn't make any fucking sense. I think we need to call the the highest officer in the land to take a look at this, because there's some type of great hoax going on when you could have a degree in esotericism. That doesn't even make sense to me, right? And how hidden is the stuff that you've studied if you could get a degree in it? It sounds pretty fucking stupid, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking too hard about this, folks. But I'm just a simple guy. I mean,
talking about. I mean, look, when I was a kid, and I was surrounded by people who were religious in what I would call transactional ways. They believe such and such and perform certain rituals to get certain things. And I was always the kid who said, "Yeah, but what if it's not true? What about the truth? What about, is there a God? Did God have a son? Is Jesus truly human and truly divine?" I mean, these were like real issues for me. And I think what modern education does to some of us is it holds out this truth that isn't just transactional. And because I think a lot of education, it's about vocation, it's about business school, it's about medical school, it's about law school. It's like skill sets essentially. And let me back
Yeah,
up.
please.
Let me back up. So over this last holiday season, I did
Sorry,
something really
pause
nerdy,
that,
and
pause
I read
that.
Plato's Republic, believe it or not. I read the whole
Hold
thing.
on, because he's about to get into something right now. But I want to mention this: is that what college and school is all about, or is it about the compartmentalization of knowledge and process? That's what I would argue. But I think he's see again, he's kind of smuggling in these kind of like platitudes, like, oh well, education is just about a skill. No, it's not. In my opinion, it's absolutely not about about knowledge. It's about compartmentalizing knowledge, in my opinion, right? But anyways, I just think it's kind of weird. He slides a lot of shit under the door, in my personal opinion. Like he's selling a fucking whole worldview. But anyways,
And it's
so he just said he read Plato's Republic. So he said he just read Plato's Republic, by the way. So yeah, let's go back a little bit.
back up. So over this last holiday season, I did something really nerdy, and I read Plato's Republic, believe it or not.
Oh my god.
yeah, I told you this is really weird. Like it gets like it directly kind of comments on some of the shit that you've been talking about. So
Oh
pretty weird. Yeah.
my god.
Let me back
Yeah,
up.
please.
Let me back up. So over this last holiday season, I did something really nerdy, and I read Plato's Republic, believe it or not.
Oh man, oh man, oh man.
It looks like he's having an orgasm as he's saying it too. Just notice that.
Ooh, baby.
Read Plato's Republic and all that. So let's see what he's got to say about that. That's interesting.
I read the whole thing. And it's very clear that education, even in ancient Greece, yes, part of it was very much about making the better soldier or the carpenter but part of it was getting out of the cave.
Right.
And if you're out of the cave, you see the light. You literally see the light. You see the good or the beautiful. And
Okay.
then the goal is to come back into the cave and to talk to the people, talk to the prisoners back in the cave. But the cave's the cave. And you've seen the light. So you know darn well that people are seeing shadows on the wall, as it were. And that's really where I'm at, I think all of these religions are shadows on the wall, and they
Yeah. So it's pretty clear that education is going to keep you in the cave. And there's a lot of stuff for getting you out of the cave in religion and philosophy that doesn't exist within the schools. Right? So I don't know. I would say that's peculiar for sure, right? How does
and
education get you out of the cave? Yeah.
Well, and isn't that perennialism? He's kind of saying like, oh, they're just shadows on the wall from the real truth or whatever. It's like, I mean, again, like, I'm not saying he's totally wrong, but he's kind of making like a total fact, like a factual claim. Like, it's a fact that religion is like a shadow on the wall. It's like, okay, so are you?
Yeah, no, I agree with anything he's saying, but I don't see how it necessarily, leads to transhumanism. Like, but at the same time, I agree with his later criticisms of materialism that I read a little bit, but I don't agree with anything he said so far. I do not agree with anything he said so far. I have my own views. So.
Yeah, let's just continue. I just want to, because again, I'm just saying like all this is what he's saying is important because he's kind of laying out his philosophical project, in my opinion. So like this is part of a larger project. So even if he's saying truth, it's like Alex Jones. Alex Jones says truth all the time, but if it's a part of a philosophical project, the Great Awakening that he's doing, right? Like that truth isn't inert, right? Like the truth still has like some sort of weight, and he's obviously putting weight behind it with with philosophy, right? So or like greasing the skids, as some people might say, right? So
Yeah, I agree. But I feel like those facts and stuff, it cannot easily be dismissed. But you're right that when it's like put in an overarching philosophical project that's aimed at something that you can be suspicious of, I agree that that's a good thing to point out. Yeah, like Alex Jones and this guy, they are probably involved in. He has connections to Islam Institute, stuff like that. So yeah, I agree with what you mean in that regard. Yeah, it's a kind of weird globalism and stuff. Probably.
Yeah, definitely.
woo baby, let's watch. Let's see what he says.
They give the prisoner something, but they also take things away.
Right.
And all of them are like that.
Right.
I've spent my life looking at all these traditions. Good luck. You're not going to find a tradition that has all your answers.
You often say that the best hermeneutic is one that can explain all the data, that doesn't have to take any of the data off the table. And again, my challenge to you is the Orthodox interpretations of the Orthodox faiths, they do explain all the data in the following example. The Christian says to the Buddhists, you're either a demon because you're trying to use your emptiness nonsense to make our believers nihilistic.
But they're not a demon.
Or they say, Vatican II, you are a lesser revelation, right? You are a lesser revelation for less advanced cultures, essentially. Yeah. The Buddha says the same thing about the Christian. I've talked to these masters. They either say they're a demon, they're trying to help you believe in an essentialist soul, get you stuck in samsara, or, and a Buddhist master told me this last year, this is for lesser revelation. This does not approximate our ultimate truth. So my challenge for you is, they do explain the data. They do explain that the other miracles are black magic, right?
It's not persuasive, though, to me.
Right.
I mean,
well, yeah, I agree
with him on that. Let me tell you why.
Hold on. Yeah, but okay, well, yeah, let's hear your thing first here.
Yeah, like I said, conventionally speaking, every tradition has a core. The core of Christianity is incarnation and resurrection. I'm trying to be unbiased here. The core for, you see that for Mahayana Buddhism is Prajnaparamita, which is seeing things as they are, the emptiness of phenomenon, dependent arising, and that's Prajnaparamita, and awakening, enlightenment to Buddha nature. Those are the two cores: Prajnaparamita and enlightenment. You see, so already they're opposed to each other. You see what I mean? So there's no like, so from the perspective of one or the other, one is a heretic, the other is an enchatika. You know what I mean? It's just what it is. I think for Islam, the core is Tawhid, I believe so, the oneness of God. That's what I think. So from what my dad says, Tawhid and stuff. So these traditions are not united and stuff. So I'm not a perennialist, like I say. So there is no such thing as a Taoist Christian or a Christian Taoist. It's like saying, I don't know, satanic Christian or Mara worshipping Buddhist. It doesn't work, like a Buddhist who worships Mara or something like that. It doesn't work. And so you see what I mean? So yeah, I take my anti-perennialist views to their logical consequence, of that. You look at the core of the tradition, because even, I'm talking about the core. Even when you accept the cores, there will be some debates among those within your tradition. What I mean? Like, that's what it is. That's what leads to different schools. That's what leads to different interpretations, stuff like that. But it's still within the core, within the tree, the branches of the tree and stuff like that. So yeah, that's the way I see it. There are different schools, for like Advaita, the core is Atman, is Brahman, there's indivisible unity. This is what I'm trying to say. If you keep things concise and incisive, most of these talks don't do that. Most talks can be reduced to like 15, 20 minutes, if you keep it incisive and concise. Any talk that goes on and has lots of views goes on longer than 2 hours most of the time. And it's like they have weird ass chairs. Look at the weird decor they have. It's obviously a psyop. I can tell this is a psyop immediately. But even within a psyop, sometimes they say some truths here or there or some facts or whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, it's important to like see how they're using your beliefs and my beliefs and Machine's beliefs against everyone. See what I'm saying? That's kind of where I'm coming from. But Machine, what were you going to say about what they were saying? Because I didn't quite catch what he was saying before this.
Well, I mean, I agree with what Buddha's saying. This guy, right? What he just said is absolutely true. But then the guy like slaps it down and says, "Well, I haven't been able to see. There's finality of answers in each tradition that will help you answer what other traditions say." But I think like that type of comparative analysis is warranted to a degree, right? As long as you affirm your own tradition, right? Meaning that in comparing different traditions, like for example, right, if you're a Christian, right, like you might look at Plato or Taoism in a philosophical sense and decide which one you like more in a Christian sense, right, or something like that, right? There's nothing wrong with that, right? I think but in terms of trying to go off of the traditions and say like either they're all true or they're all false, the way this guy's saying, right? And say that, well, they don't really have answers about each other's traditions. Well, they do, right? I agree with this guy. They do have answers about each other's traditions, right? So I don't know. It's been enough time where everybody's studied everybody else's views, right? And those ideas do exist, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with TML on that. Yeah, agree with you on that.
Yeah, and look, if we can say that we disagree with these perennialist things, but the truth is like they've basically tried to turn everyone in the world into a perennialist. So I mean, you can't deny that either, right? Like we can't be in denial of what they've done to the world. So and again, like when I say I'm a Christian Taoist, I mean it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but I mean I don't think you can argue against the Tao Te Ching. I don't think there's one person on earth who could sit here and read the Tao Te Ching and say this is bullshit. I don't think it's possible. So take that for what it's worth. Like if somebody
Yeah.
can tell me how the Tao Te Ching is wrong, I would be more than happy to hear it. But I mean, I don't think it's possible.
Well, this is the type of perennialism that I think is a problem. Here is from the introduction of the Tao Te Ching, right, from Jacob Needleman, right, and he literally says, like he says a bunch of weird lines, but he says here, throughout the world, when one thinks of the greatest spiritual figures in history, Lao Tzu placed alongside Christ, the Buddha, Moses, and Muhammad. Right. He also compares it to a bunch of different traditions. I don't know if I'll be able to find it right now, but he actually says that it's like the Kabbalah and all this other stuff. He says it's like Plato and the Kabbalah. So I think like he's going way too far, right? Where he's like applying
Yeah,
the Tao Te Ching to like.
Yeah, and just to be clear, again, Christianity has embedded within it. I guess it's a syncretism where it says logos pragmaticos, meaning within our doctrine we say that there is elements of truth in a lot of other things. So that is part of our belief. Okay, so again, you may disagree with that, but again, that's kind of foundational to Christianity as far as I understand it. Now, if somebody wants to say, well, that's not real Christianity, I mean, good luck arguing that. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that's a part of what Christianity is kind of founded upon. So, whether you want to say that that's wrong or whatever, again, you say take beliefs based on their own structure. I mean, you got to argue against why logos grammaticos is not valid within its own structure, right? So, I mean, again, some people may not want to talk about that, but it seems to be foundational to Christianity, at least some sort of Christianity. I mean, maybe some of them don't, accept it, but as far as I know, it's kind of like embedded in there pretty deep, as far as I understand it. So,
Yeah, that's a universalist element. So does Buddhism have that. My tradition, I think even Islam has that too. It seems like universalism is a fine line between universalism and perennialism or something that led to the techno-liberal mess we're in or something. That's TML talks about that a lot too. I do think that Buddhism, Christianity, Islam all have like universalist elements. I guess it's kind of because there's similar stuff in Buddha Dharma. It's called Pratyeka Buddha, the Pratyeka Buddha, which is more like if someone who never heard the teachings of the Buddha, they can still become enlightened. You know what I mean? So it can happen. Enlightenment is not confined within the Buddhist tradition. I mean, the sutras say that. So, but hearing the Buddha's teachings just make the likelihood of enlightenment much higher. And so yeah.
Yeah, the way I define universalism, I guess, is a little bit different, right? The way I define universalism is that basically man supersedes nature, right, through reason, right? So basically everyone has this quality, right? So it's a reaffirmation of the individual, right? So it's the belief that everyone is an individual, right? And they all have a similar drive towards freedom. Like, for example, Hobbes said that if you place a man in a state of nature, he's as indisposed as basically any other man. Basically, all men are equal within the state of nature, right? This idea is basically universalism, right? Because it leads to the idea that everyone's the same everywhere, right? So when I say universalism, I mean a specific thing, meaning that all mankind has a similar telos or destiny, right? Where it's like all of mankind is like, like, for example, evolution, right? Or for example, the species being, or for example, the political animal, the zoon politikon, right? It's something like that, right?
Yeah, but all men are equal in the state of nature, right? Well, all men are, some Christians, a lot of them say all men are equal under Christ, all men are equal under God.
Yeah, but
all men are equal
yeah,
under Buddha nature.
But see, like Paul basically said, like there's one vessel made for glory, one vessel made for destruction, and then people have different callings, and like they're not equal. Like he basically says like they're not basically equal. Like men and women are not equal. The slave and the master are not equal, and so on and so forth. Right? He affirms all these differences, right? That's what I mean.
Yeah, affirms.
Yeah, but also I think you could say like equal in potential, but not equal in outcome. I think might be another way to put it.
Right. So then, like, like, say, like, the Christian societies of the past, right? When they came upon societies that they saw that were barbarians, right? They didn't relate to that. Right? They said, no, we have our Christian society. You have your thing. We're either going to subsume your society, or or something else happens, right?
It's graded, basically. You're saying graded potential for realization or something is graded. It's graded.
Yeah, like it happened all throughout history, right?
Yeah,
where certain civilizations were absorbed into another one.
Yeah, but evolution is actually not saying, oh, organisms are equal, because some are better adapted to their niches or environments.
Oh
and
yeah, oh yeah,
uh,
absolutely. If it's saying that it's all random, right? But I'm saying if you say like the collective of humanity has a evolutionary potential, say, or you say something like that, or you say that everybody has the ability, more or less, they're more or less equal within a state of nature, or something like that. Like for example,
and
like
that is let you
survival.
know I'm going mobile for a second, so I'm going to be in the back under my phone. So
Right.
I'll have two people on the screen, so I can listen while I walk outside for a minute. So
Yeah, like because see, there's a development of this thing, right? So I think of the historical development of universalism in terms of the Islam and Christianity did contribute to it because they put man, right, because they're trying to master Aristotelianism, right? So what they did was they um through their reason, they said, well, man is separate from nature, right, because of the principles of mind, right? And then God is immaterial, separate from nature, right, placed in an immaterial realm, right? So then I think that compromise basically led to universalism, right? Because it's like then you can then say that man is above nature and there is no God, right? So the only step you have to take after that is that you just dethrone God, right? You say man can define his own destiny,
well,
right? So I think, yeah,
I think there's a good argument that they're smuggling that in very clearly, in my opinion. So
yeah, like this whole idea that man can define himself, and especially in the sense of the individual, right? I think that is, and Hegel literally says, he says that the Greeks realized freedom on a society-wide basis, but the Protestant Reformation and the Germans realized it for the individual.
yeah, and really quick, I just want to mention this. I think part of what they're trying to smuggle in is the Aristotelianism, because then they say, well, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he says something to the effect of like, well, there's no truth except for this, and so I don't know. They're definitely smuggling something under the radar about this particular thing.
I understand the religions at their most acute or their most intellectual do comparison. They do explain why there are other religions and they relate themselves to those other religious systems. But I'm just not persuaded by their answers because I've heard all those answers. I've heard that. And no, they're not demons. They might be lesser revelation. I mean, we can talk about how reality is organized and what reality is, but I don't think the Orthodox Christians have the ultimate answer either.
Right.
You know, I think it's much.
I mean, like, I don't really believe anyone when they say they've looked at it all. Like, there's probably stuff you missed. And I mean, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of religions out there, even ones that we may have missed. There's viewpoints that I come across new, all the time. Like, there's all sorts of cults and sects, and so I don't know. Like, I don't think he's seen all of Christianity, let alone every religion, right? To make that distinction and say, well, this type of Christianity is particularly false. You know what I mean? Because you've seen all of the religions. That strikes me as just particularly just pretty suspect. I don't know.
It's more likely that the Buddhists probably they might actually have the
Closer to right.
They might actually, but that is a choice I make. Let me switch metaphors.
Please.
Switch. So I train graduate students and I say, look, you don't have any business being a scholar of comparative religion until you've lost at least two worlds. And they look at me and they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, look, if you haven't lost a world, you still think your own religious or cultural or secular world is ultimate. You think it can answer all these questions.
So that's not objective, right? How can you objectively claim that unless you give up your religion, your religious worldview, you can't successfully study comparative religions? I think that's just a particularly false statement. You know, what does your own religious viewpoint have to do with you objectively studying anything? I don't know. All right, you could possibly perfectly separate your religious point of view from what you're studying. I don't know. So I mean, I think that is a false recommendation. You know, he's telling people to give up their religious tradition, right? And you know, and that's going to help them study comparative religion. I don't understand it all, right? I don't understand. Wouldn't, if you gave up a religious tradition, an atheistic viewpoint would color your ideas about religion and what's true and what's false then? You know, I don't know. You know, how are you not biased just because you gave up your own religion? That doesn't dispel all biases. I don't know. None of that makes sense to me.
If you've lost that world, the chances are extremely high you've just jumped into another. And that might be Orthodox Christianity. That might be secular scientism. That might be whatever. And now you think that one has all the answers, but it doesn't either. And when that world then starts to collapse or you start to question it, you start to...
Well, yeah, that's not how life works. You don't go window shopping for ideologies and religious viewpoints. And I don't know.
hesitate. You're like, well, why should I jump into a third world?
Right.
Because that third world isn't going to be ultimate either. And it's at that point you become an intellectual.
Right. And that kind of mirrors my journey where I've investigated two traditions.
So behind 3 layers of skepticism, you're ready. You're not mentally diseased, as most would think. Right, but now you're ready to study things. Right, what? That was, I don't know if that's objective, right?
And I'm like, well, hold on. But
Well, he's telling you that if you want to be given this, piece of paper to prove that you are worthy of comparing religions, you must be, he's basically saying, I'm not going to give you this like designation unless you're going to reject at least 2 religions.
That seems like
so
religious
he's kind of creating his
discrimination.
own cult.
That seems like religious discrimination.
Exactly.
Outright. That seems like he's a person who's teaches in a university, but he's practicing religious discrimination, even though he studies comparative religions. That seems completely antithetical to his main objective of study. I don't know. This is so weird.
Well, and it's kind of a cult within itself, saying like to be in this cult, you have to reject other cults in order to get into this one. So he's like, everything's a cult, and you have to reject these other, at least 2 other cults to be in this one, and then you'll be ready to be shipped out into the world to poison the minds of other people. I mean, not to get too like Socrates on you, but I mean, I don't know. He again, it's just interesting that he's kind of like admitting that. Again, he kind of said, well, that's subjective, and then he goes into like more subjective, personal opinions and says like, I'm not even going to graduate.
Right.
I don't even want to graduate you unless you agree with me, essentially.
Yeah, this is weird. So Dr. Boy said, unless you give up your religion, I'm not going to give you a degree. Pretty weird stuff, dude. Honestly, appalling. Like, what?
they say claims I can't differentiate. But then what about the others? I draw that conclusion, right?
But here's the problem with that answer. You're basically alone. You're talking to weird people like me. You're like, there are people who inhabit that space. Yes, there are. But we tend to be very nerdy and very intellectual about it. And we
persecuted often.
What's that?
Persecuted historically.
Yeah, and we don't have these large communities or these large traditions. So this is why I say this orientation represents a kind of new.
So he's the
era,
real Jew. He's the persecuted one.
Humanity that doesn't exist yet in any large numbers.
Right.
No, I was just saying he's the real Jew. He's the persecuted one. They're the weirdos. And I think that he's admitting that they're using Plato to like run over every religion. But anyways.
This is a question I have for you, but maybe I'll frame it in my own context, which is, I'm not even sure what it would take to get me to go into one of these Orthodox religions.
Yeah.
Let's say Jesus comes down right now in this very room. It's on camera, and he says, Jonathan, I am, what he says in Matthew, I'm the one true way, right? And I'm like, oh, wait a second. Jeff's had that experience with Kali, like showing up to him, and this Buddha master has an experience of Nagarjuna popping up. So is there anything in the world, historically, philosophically, phenomenologically, that could happen to you? Is there anything that could happen to you?
Yeah, it's Nagarjuna, bro. He's dropping the hard R with that. Pretty weird, man.
He's a Tibetan. They also, my believe it or not, my Slovenian friend who's a transhumanist. He's a Vajrayana Buddhist. You believe that? Right now he's in a retreat. I got into contact with him again on another email because he blocked me because of our arguments. But he said we can talk again on the May 25th because I have some questions for him though. But he is a Vajrayana Buddhist. He's more to transhumanist stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think this guy is. I'm not saying this guy is. Well, maybe he is, but I don't know. I don't see anything. I don't see anything so far that points to transhumanism. Right now, they're talking about traditions, but in the glove of liberal secularism or globalism.
Yeah, well, that's a major part of it, right? They're promoting basically basic liberal secularism, which is the base for the technological society. So, but that's not transhumanism for sure.
Yeah,
you're right about that.
It enables it. It enables it. Yeah.
Oh, it does enable it. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that I agree with. I agree with that. Yes. Yeah, that I agree with.
Get you convinced by, let's say, one of the Western monotheisms?
So again, I think Jesus actually does appear to people, but so does the Buddha, so does Nagarjuna, so do all these other. So I'm deeply suspicious of religious experience, and it doesn't mean I don't take it very seriously. Of course, I do, but I want to keep all of these religious. I believe too much, Jonathan.
Right.
I want to put them all on the table, and I want everybody's religious experience to be considered, not just this one or that one. And once you put all those on the table, it really changes the table.
But that's why I asked you the question: what would it take to get you at this point to go back to, let's say, Catholicism? Like, what would it take?
I don't know.
Right. But isn't that concerning? I mean, is it concerning for me?
No, it's not concerning to me at all, because I think going back to the religion is going back. I think, I often refer to believing backwards. Belief itself is you're affirming to someone else's altered state.
All right, pause it right here. Pause it. Okay, so this is where he's like promoting like very overtly like progressivism, and everything he says is basically like anything but like. He's basically saying, like, he goes on to say, in my opinion, anything but Christianity can be true, basically. So anyways, it's just kind of weird, but he's using progressivism via Christianity to make the argument. So I don't know. I just want to mention that because this is right where I really started like tuning into it. So like the next 20 minutes or whatever, I don't know what the timestamp is, but up to like minute 55, like it gets pretty wild, like some of the shit he's saying. So this is where it gets pretty crazy. So
someone else's interpretation of that altered state really is what you're really affirming. Why?
Right.
Why are you doing that? It's like near-death experiencers. They often.
Oh, the next section is called Against Eastern Religion. So interesting. But
yeah, exactly.
They'll want me to sign their name or sign my name to whatever they think the afterlife is. And I'm like, I can't do that.
Right.
Because if I do that, then I can't affirm this other person's near-death experience. Everybody is having a slightly different experience of the afterlife. What I can really affirm is when you come back from the afterlife or you come back from a near-death experience and you affirm that these are all interpretations of something that
I don't know if that's necessarily true. You guys ever seen that Hieronymus Bosch thing?
What is it?
The Hieronymus Bosch painting thing that.
No.
Here, hold on. Let me see if I can find this real quick. And I may take a little. break soon. I mean, make some coffee, but yeah, check this out. This is, I mean, he's saying it's all different for everybody, but check this out. I don't know how true this is that people see this. Oh, wait, Finding Gnosis and Jack Talcott are streaming together. Interesting.
In 1505, Hieronymus Bosch painted something he should not have been able to paint, not because it required an impossible technique, nor because the subject was forbidden, but because what appears at the top of this panel, that tunnel of light opening in the darkness, with two figures waiting at the far end, would not be described by any human being until nearly 5 centuries later. Today, when someone has a near-death experience and doctors ask them what they saw, the answer repeats itself with a consistency that science has still not been able to fully explain. Millions of people claim to have seen a tunnel surrounded by darkness, a white light at the end, and someone waiting for them there. And although talking about this light at the end of the tunnel feels completely normal to us today, Bosch painted it more than 500 years ago. What makes this so remarkable is that he painted it without having had any near-death experience himself. He was not influenced by the thousands of documented testimonies we have access to today. Bosch painted this from imagination, or from faith, or from something we still do not know how to name, and that is the question we are going to try to answer today. Not just what this painting means, but how it is possible that it exists at all. The work is part of a polyptych of 4 panels known as Visions of the Hereafter, painted between 1505 and 1515.
Okay, so the first 2 panels represent if you were bad, you go to the bad place. The other 2 panels represent what happens if you follow the true path. Right? You end up in a garden, and then you end up going through that tunnel. But yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah. So what though? I don't get it. Oh.
I don't know. I really like that Hieronymus Bosch painting, but
Yeah, it's a good painting. I agree. Definitely great artistry and vision behind it.
yeah. I don't know if I could verify the statement he made that thousands of people have seen this image in a near-death experience. I cannot confirm that. So I don't know if that's relevant information, but it would be if it was, right? If that's true, then that is relevant, and then he's wrong. That thousands of people do not see different things upon near death, or they see the same thing, right?
Yeah, that's true. There are some patterns of regularity, the regularity, and
Right, yeah.
they probably need to sample a lot of data and stuff.
Scientifically, it would be true, right? That the patterns of near-death experiences should, we should be able to obtain some sort of regular, some regularity of it, insight, and some continuation of experience.
Yeah. For me personally, like I generally don't reject that people are having these experiences, but I don't trust the way that a lot of people try to characterize it, because it always seems to go back to this like secular humanism.
Yeah, you
evidence.
can't tell if the person's lying. That's a huge problem with it, for sure, right? Yeah, they
Also,
could
you have
just be
to-
making up what they saw.
Like when I was a kid, they had like endless stuff on the TV about this shit. So like literally, I was 5 years old watching like hours and hours and hours about NDE and Edgar Casey and all this shit. So again, I'm not saying that means it's not true. I'm just saying like they've heavily pushed it in media for like 30, 40, 50 years probably. So
Yeah. Also, I would say that you have to have controls, or you have to have a good representative samples, because you have to like the cultural background. You have to take that into account too, because like how do I don't know, like people in Buddhist communities, how do they see the near-death experience, or how do people from like Western societies or Middle Eastern or blah blah blah? You gotta like take that into account too, the cultural background. Because there could be a tunnel. Let's say there's a tunnel for each of us, but there could be bodhisattvas instead of angels. It's hard to tell. You see what I'm trying to say? Because bodhisattvas do have like transcendental powers. Mahayana.
All right, sorry about that. Okay. I put my mic down. I'm like, where did I put this mother? I'm like looking around. It's like next to my hip. Sorry.
Experiencing, yes. Then I can sign my name to
Right.
that. Then I can say, okay, let's go that direction. Let's do that.
And again, just for our audience, this is not going to be the entire conversation. We're actually going to go to a positive view of like a non-dualism filter. But let me again continue grilling you on this one point.
No, it's okay.
Because, I mean, this drives my Christian friends crazy when I say this, but I tell them, if everything in the Bible happened exactly as it said, literally, I say, what's the big deal? Resurrection, that happens all the time. Pagan gods resurrect all the time. Empty tomb, Tibetan Buddhists today, their bodies disappear, rainbow bodies, very well reported. Miracles, there's a lot cooler miracles in the history of religion than multiplying fish and turning water into wine, right? Eternal life, Taoism, forgiving sin.
Oh, come on, dude. It's about what's true, bro. It's not who has cooler miracles, man. This isn't fucking comic books. Get your head out of your ass, man.
No,
What are
and
you
that's
talking
and again, like even within Christianity, we have extreme skepticism about what we claim as miracle, because we say even the devil can do a miracle to fuck your head up. So I mean, you know what I mean? Like we account for that.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Jesus tells people not to tell people about his miracles. Like he literally says that. He's like, bro, like, please save me the fucking, the entire spiel, right? Like of having to explain to people there's this entire thing going on, right? I don't know. So yeah, the point is obviously not telling people that there's miracles. I don't know. How could it be?
Tantric masters taking up people's karma and then resolving it. And I asked them, like, it drives them crazy, right? Like, what is the big deal? Even claiming that he's God. I and the Father are one. This is a common claim within Indian mystics, right? Is that the kind of thing you're gesturing at? Like, I can affirm everything.
Well, again, it's more complicated than that because, of course, not everything in the Bible happened.
Right. But I'm saying even if,
right? Yeah, I think again, it's believing too much. It's not believing too little. It's you're affirming everything. You're not just affirming this particular tradition or this particular community. I read the entire Bible. I was trained in biblical studies. I know it well. That was my original tradition. It's just
so you said. You keep on pointing that out. How learned you are. How you've seen it all. Yeah.
Well, and again, the key word here is trained. Trained. Again, it's like you've been trained like a dog to like perform a task, right? So
it just ain't true what people say about the Bible. It's just nonsense. It's not true.
Can you give an example?
He's Spurgeon, man. What's going on with him?
But that's what I was saying is like he's like very much like anti-Christian, and he's like, look, it's just not true. So again, it's like assertion. It's like,
yeah,
that was weird, bro. There was an anti-Christo spirit. I don't know.
Tradition. It just ain't true what people say about the Bible. It's just nonsense. It's not true.
Can you
What is going on with him, man? He's about to have a heart attack, bro. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, this is bad. He's freaking out. It's just not true, man. It just ain't true.
Hell no. That shit ain't gonna happen.
yeah. That's such a good clip.
Give an example. I think you think the most compelling example.
Well, this whole notion of family values is complete nonsense. It's not in the New Testament text. It's anti-family, really. At the end of the day, there's a kind of sexual transgression that runs throughout anti-family, really. At the end of the day, there's a kind of sexual transgression text. It's anti-family, really. At the end of the day, there's a kind of sexual transgression that.
Whoa! The Bible, anti-family, and about sexual transgressions. Weird. I'm not following this one. Where's he going with this?
Runs throughout all of the biblical texts, both the Jewish and the Christian texts, and the idea that we're going to get some family values it's just nutty.
Right. Jesus says, if you don't hate your family, you can't. Right. Or be a eunuch for the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally, I've written about that. I wrote about the eunuch passage, and a eunuch is someone who's
feminized.
I mean, whose balls are cut off, and so there was really this affirmation of sexual renunciation and a kind of sexual transgression in the teaching.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to be disrespectful to Christians with that. That was pretty. I'm gonna say that was pretty weird. Like that got pretty dark, right? Obviously, like if you're like some cucked weirdo that's following every sexual pleasure, you're not exactly a man's man, right? So I don't know. Like there's possible. Like back in the day, there was eunuchs who were like great warriors and stuff. All right. So I'm just saying, like, being a eunuch does not mean, don't do a bunch of stuff. I don't know. You could still have a family and then become a eunuch. I don't know. So yeah, that was a pretty weird statement. I don't know. I think he's going way far with that. And I don't know where he's actually getting at, that the Bible has to do with sexual transgressions. Yes, there is passages where it says you should put your religion above your family. But that doesn't necessarily mean, it doesn't say that wives should obey their husbands and all this stuff, and that marriage is better than prostitution and all this stuff. There's hundreds of passages that say that. Right? So I don't know where it's, really going too far into sexual transgressions. I don't know. But yeah, I agree that the stuff about not having sex.
I have something to say. I think, if we're going to talk about psyops, I think this stuff strengthens Christianity. Think about it, because this is not actually talking about the core beliefs of Christianity. The core beliefs are incarnation and resurrection. Okay, unless you're criticizing those two, then you're not even like talking about Christianity. This is what the occultists do. You see that I do think there is a conspiracy where they're trying to like mix Vajrayana up with like, I don't know, esoteric Aristotelian Christianity, like
right.
Yeah, which you could deny is even Christian. But the point is that, unless you unless you reject incarnation and resurrection, that you're not really like even talking about the crux of Christianity.
Yeah, but the other thing is that people can just say that they accept it when they don't too. See, that's the other side of it. So like,
That's true.
so anybody can say, "Oh, I accept it," but then how do you know that they accept it? See, that's the other thing is like, again, this is where the whole thing like faith versus belief is like, they're I truly think they're conflating it, and he kind of plays with that term faith in a few minutes. You'll see what he brings it up. That's kind of why you have to listen so carefully to what he's saying, because like he kind of does a little bit of like, trickery in his like terminology, in my opinion. And he's already done some of that, but I think it gets a little bit worse as time goes on.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a kind of double speak or something. This is that's the way it is. Yeah, that's why writing is superior to speaking, in my opinion, because when you write something down and you make sure that's what it is, it's harder to argue against it or something like this. You're very direct and incisive. Like, it's easier to tell with writing if someone is sincere or authentic. With speaking, can be hard. But yeah, this whole thing does seem kind of scripted or kind of like social engineering. I agree with you on that.
Teachings, and I've literally had a copy editor tell me that's not in the Bible. I'm like, well, it is. It's right there. It's like, Matthew 17 or whatever it is. I'm like, come on, it's right. There's the Greek. And he's like, no, it's not. It doesn't exist. And I'm just like, but it does exist. And this is the problem I have. Editor tell me that's not in the Bible. Sexual renunciation and a kind of sexual transgression in the teachings. And I've literally had a copy editor tell me that's not in the Bible. I'm like, well, it is. It's right there. It's like, Matthew 17 or whatever it is. I'm like, come on, it's right. There's the Greek. And he's like, no, it's not. It doesn't exist. And I'm just like, but it does exist. And this is the problem I have with a lot of things, with a lot of religious claims that they're just not held up by, if you just look at the scriptural text. Why are you giving so much authority to a bunch of texts written thousands of years ago? Why? Why do you have to have everything rooted in the Bible, for goodness sake? What about all these other scriptural texts? Why any scriptural text? Why not rooted in human experience and in the human being? Why?
How can you verify human experience? See, again, this is like now you're just going to believe whatever somebody tells you their experience is as your base. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of
And the irony of being somebody who studies comparative religion and then saying, "Don't look over here, just go live your experience." And they're like, "What?" It's like, why didn't you do that then?
Why give yourself over to some authority or some textual tradition from the past that certainly exists, but it's still a kind of willful submission?
Yeah, well, I think this is the maybe difference between where our paths are, you having been so far ahead of me, in the sense that
I'm 63. I'm really crabby. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work.
In the sense that
I'm 63.
Where our paths are, you having been so far ahead of me, in the sense that
I'm 63.
Where our paths are, you having been so far ahead of me, in the sense that I'm
63.
Am I tripping, or did he just say he's 6'6", pretty weird, but yeah.
back it up one more time if you don't mind. I didn't catch it. Hold on. No, back that up one more time.
I'm 63.
Yeah, that sounded like he's saying 6663 or something like that. It's pretty weird.
I'm 63.
6'6", Good Lord. Wow. So
Number of the beast.
So yeah, you hear that, folks? He's 6'6", 63. So yeah.
I'm really crabby. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work.
Exactly, because I think I'm still at the stage of, look, I just want to take the Christians in the most charitable light. Everything you say is true. This is Hegel's method in the phenomenology of resolving equivalence. I'm going to say everything you say is true. Can I still find imminent contradictions within your text? That's kind of my project now.
But
hold up. Sorry.
Right. So how can I say that?
Back up 10 seconds, because like they're definitely not being charitable whatsoever to Christianity. Like that's such bullshit. Like it's totally not true at all. But I just want to hear one more time what they said. Sorry.
I'm going to say everything you say is true. Can I still find imminent contradictions within your text? That's kind of my project now.
Again, it's straw manning, because you can't read a text without the interpretation. So again, it's called hermeneutics. There's no way they don't know the term hermeneutics, and they haven't mentioned it once. Like
they did mention it.
Oh, they did. Okay. Well, I mean, it's like how you interpret it determines it. Like I can write one sentence, give it to 1,000 people, and get 1,000 answers of like how they interpret it, right? Like you can't just say like take it in a vacuum and say the words themselves have meaning beyond interpretation. Like I just don't think that's, I mean, maybe like the sky is blue or the sun shines.
I disagree. They say that.
I mean, you can disagree all fucking day long, but that's just bullshit. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
no, like
sorry,
it-
it's totally
the
bullshit.
core. See, this is what leads to these problems. Okay, the core hermeneutics has limitation. The core of Christian tradition is incarnation and resurrection. Okay, those are
I don't really agree with you on that, but
you
okay,
don't agree
sure.
with me on that. You don't
No,
agree with me on what over
I think
95% of Christians believe.
I think you're
Yeah, yeah.
oversimplifying it. But
See,
again,
then you are
I'll do what they're saying, and I'll just take it at face value and say, okay, continue with your straw man. Go ahead.
no, if you don't. Okay, the core of Christianity is incarnation and resurrection. You're saying that we can interpret that many different ways, right? You don't take it literally, okay? At least that's the way you say it. If you do that, then you become like these guys, because in many respects, you know what I mean? Because that is the core of, you know, what your ancestors and the tradition was. Incarnation and resurrection, you know, of course, that is the core. Like,
Right, but again, you can't just take those things outside of outside of the Old Testament, outside of the New Testament, all the interpretations and the metaphysics and all the other things that come along with it. I mean, you're just saying like those two things, but again, all those things have consequences and they're based on other things. I mean, that's
that's
like
true.
saying like Buddhism has to, Buddhism means like non-materialism. It's like, okay, but also, there's like, 10,000, quatrains about all this other shit, right? So like for me to like boil it down, it's
Yeah.
like non-materialism is just bullshit,
Yeah, I would say maybe like the Sermon on the Mount or something if I had to guess. Like, what's the core teachings of Christianity? Maybe I'd go to like the Sermon on the Mount, or something like that. You know,
Yeah, I mean it's definitely like everything that Jesus said first, and then the text itself, and then the interpretations of the text. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like there's still there's still like a prioritization. I think in my opinion. I mean, I'm sure that
Yeah.
other people will disagree, but like, you have to take like one step at a time. Like I think the red letters of what he's saying is number one, number two, in context of what the Bible says, and then number three, which is the most important part, is how do you interpret that with everything else. Now again, I'm not saying I agree with like every single church father, because they don't all agree with each other, obviously, right? But still, there's certain, and then you ask some people, even Jay Dyer himself said this the other day, and I have a clip of it, which is going to be very interesting. But he said, the councils supersede the church fathers, but then the local synod overrides the church fathers and the councils, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah,
there's
but
different ways of looking at the whole situation, right? So I'm just saying,
yeah,
like,
I agree
to
that
boil it down.
I wasn't denying the
Yeah,
hermeneutics
and again, I'm not really saying this against you. I'm just saying, like, you know, again, those matters that you brought up are about faith. It's not about like reason and logic and all these other things. So like, now he's bringing reason and logic into it. So now we have a whole nother ball game, which again, I guess you could argue like Aristotle and Plato had some form of logic, but it's kind of all been pushed through a Christian lens at this point, and Paul and all these other things. So I mean, you know, you they've kind of made a perennialist religion called secular humanism that we're all, immersed in and swim in, right? So I mean, to just ignore that and then just move forward saying, well, you have to take language 100% at face value. I mean, they've had encryption openly since the days of Rome, at least, if not much further back. So I mean, you know what I mean? Like, encryption is a real thing, and it's kind of well known in language, and especially the English language that, and Hebrew as well, and Greek as well. Like,
yeah. Well,
so
yeah. What I'm saying is that the incarnation and resurrection are like considered concrete facts within your tradition, that they happened, they transpired, and then there's the
yeah,
hermeneutics.
but again, fact is not really fact. I don't think fact is really the right word. But again, I mean, you can say that word. I'm just saying, like,
Okay.
I don't think that's really the right. I don't think that's what I would use, but I get what you're. I get what you're saying, right?
Yeah, from the vantage point of your tradition, the incarnation and resurrection are facts that they claim it happened. Okay, and then they interpret and they frame it differently. They interpret it differently. Like some of them, view it in terms of original sin. Other ones don't. The Orthodox have their own unique take on it, which is not original sin, and so on. In Buddhism, we say a fact is Buddha achieved enlightenment underneath the Bodhi tree. Well, in my tradition, Bodhidharma awakened to the true nature of his mind. And then you have the lineage of transmission, and this leads to seeing things
Right.
as they are, which is
Right. But again,
Paramita. I'm keeping it simple. I'm
no,
not
I
done
get
yet.
it. But again, you're saying it's a fact, but a fact kind of implies that there's like evidence that you could prove, and I don't think you have evidence of your claim, just like there wouldn't be evidence of mine in the sense of like a rational, logical thing, right? So
Yeah, I mean, this gets into some very complex stuff. Yeah. This gets into yeah, I know what you mean. A fact doesn't necessarily need empirical foundation or rational argumentation. I think so.
right.
'Cause-
So my point is that writing itself is always going to be like a representation of anything. So again, to take writing at complete face value is not really possible, right? Like, and I think again, this is what Plato is used for, is like the forms, meaning like you say the word horse, like generally you get the idea, but it's not going to tell you about a specific horse with like a circle around its eye and a heart shaped, you know, pattern on its chest or whatever. You see what I mean? Like it's going to tell you like the essence of a thing. It's not going to tell you directly like the specific thing inherently. See what I'm saying? So
Yeah, can
again,
I ask you a question? Let's say there is someone who claim I am Christian, but I reject the incarnation and resurrection. Are they still Christian? Yes or no?
I mean, no, of course not. But again, somebody could also say that they do accept it and they don't. Like Alexander Dugin, for example, like he says that he accepts it, but I mean, how would I know whether he does or not? See what I mean? Like he just says that. How do I know that he's honest or not? Right?
Yeah, that's the point is that you're reading too much into things. We gotta take, in my opinion,
Well, that's
we
an
gotta
assertion.
we
Well,
gotta
again, I just
take
want to
out
point out
face value.
that you're making an assertion, and the assertion is you're looking too much into it, right? So unless you can prove that I'm looking too much into it, you're not really making a valid claim. But anyways, I mean, again, like I think we can use Aristotelian logic if we want, but it's a tool. It doesn't mean it's correct. But I mean, if we're going to get into Aristotelian like claims, let's make Aristotelian claims, and you're just making an assertion that's not
I'm saying
real.
that
But
when you say this, what, in my view, is that this is my view that every tradition has a core foundational beliefs. You can decompose the tradition into those core beliefs, but of course, I'm not saying the other stuff isn't important. I'm just saying that those core beliefs.
yeah, look, Jeffrey Dahmer might have believed in the incarnation of Christ, but he also like scooped people's brains out and ate it on a silver plate. I mean, or whatever he did, right? So like,
He's still a Christian.
you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean that he's like the example of Christianity. See what I mean? So like, right? Like, I don't
Yeah, of course.
understand what
That
you're trying
doesn't
to get
mean
at.
that he was a bad Christian. There are bad Muslims, bad Buddhists. They, I'm trying to say is that, that's I like to keep it simple. Let me see here. I like to keep it simple. Like I like to like break it down to 3 or 4 or 2
Yeah,
main.
I get what you're saying. I just don't know how it's relevant to what we're talking about, really.
It's
Ultimately,
extremely relevant because if these two idiots, two idiots there, if they start off by saying those core beliefs, okay, and they discussed it and they made it clear, then they wouldn't need to talk for 2 hours. Already, people would see they're incompatible.
well, but my point is that they're just asserting that this is nonsense and that's nonsense and this is nonsense. But my point is that everything that they're saying that they believe in is based on nonsense too, by their own, by their own like guidelines of their beliefs, right? Like they're
Yeah, I
just kind
agree.
of going into incredulousness, which
Yeah, I
again
should
is
agree with
fine,
you
but
on that. Yeah.
they're just not being honest about that. See what I mean? Like they're
Yeah,
saying
even before this
I'm a
conversation, I said that. I said they're
yeah.
gonna talk a lot of bullshit. I knew that.
Yeah,
I
but
just don't.
again, I'm just saying that like they're basically undermining their own logic by their claims that about other things. Like they're undermining, you know, any coherence to a truth claim, right? Like they're saying there is no truth, but there is truth. And let me tell you how I'm going to undermine everybody else's truth except my own, but I'm not going to tell you what my truth is and how I validate it. So again, in my opinion, they're basically saying nothing. Essentially, like they're just basically undermining all truth, all value, all language, everything. I mean, they're basically, doing a black magic ritual against knowledge and philosophy or language. I mean, they're kind of creating this giant black hole and sucking everything into it and saying, here's the truth. I mean, that's what I see, but I mean, maybe you see it differently, but
Yeah. Yeah, I like to. Yeah, I think like I said in the beginning. These people are idiots. I knew that, but I said they're not arguing for
I
transhumanism.
I don't think they're idiots. I just want to hear what they say and comment on it. I think they're very deliberately doing a black magic ritual, in my opinion. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I believe. I
Yeah,
don't
they
think
are. I agree.
I
They
don't
are
I
doing
don't I
black
don't
magic
I don't think
ritual.
they're idiots. I think they know exactly what they're doing personally. Or they're possessed by a demon. I mean, perhaps. I mean, one or the other, it doesn't really matter. I think effectively the results are the same.
I agree. Yeah, they're either agents or they're idiots or. And the point is that I knew this when I came here. I said I think some of his thoughts about dual aspect monism were interesting. I don't think they're arguing for transhumanism though, but it can be enabled and facilitate the growth of movement towards
Yeah.
transhumanism. If you
Well, let's just hear a little bit more of what they're saying, and then we'll get to the part that you want to cover, because I do want to get to that, honestly.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he literally said, yeah, he said what when the guy said, "Why give credence to 1,000-year-old documents?" and then he said, "Oh yeah, I just read Plato's Republic." Ooh, ooh, ooh. What a retard.
This is like Tulip Earth if he had a philosophy degree.
Yeah. Oh wait, we actually have a great clip for that.
Tent, and he could accomplish more. Nobody gives a fuck about your dumbass fucking philosophy. Nobody gave a fuck about anybody's philosophy takes. What the fuck? When did a philosopher ever do a fucking thing? Show me one time a philosopher ever did a fucking thing.
Facts.
So yeah.
I'm sold.
Imminent contradictions
Yeah.
within your text. That's kind of my project now.
But
yeah.
I know it's not all true.
Right.
So how can I say that? And
So let me ask you this: in your current view, who is Jesus? Who is Muhammad? Who is Moses? Are these exactly who the Orthodox faiths claim they are? Are these complete frauds? Are these genuine saints that their tradition kind of got carried away with?
So my own view is, well, first of all, we don't know. We don't even know if Moses existed.
Damn. Well, that's pretty bad, right? I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? So any of the previous claims you made about it being false and contradictory, I mean, you don't really know any of that either then, right? Because if you don't know if any of these things are real, if any of these people are real, then how much can you say about them? Right? Again, you don't know what you don't know. So, I mean, a lot of his previous stuff, I don't know if he could stand on that.
Jesus and Muhammad, certainly historical figures, but we don't know their personal experience. I mean, the Gospel of John is not the historical Jesus. But my assumption is that a lot of these historical figures had some kind of experience of divinity, and their followers frame that in a particular way.
And see, look, he said the Gospel of John is not the historical Jesus, but we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what the personal experience of these people were. So maybe the personal experience in John matches more than the other 3 synoptic gospels. How would we ever know if we don't know what we don't know? Right? So, so how is he to say, well, John is less historical than the other 3 gospels? You wouldn't know that. Right? You have no fucking clue. You just admitted that, right? So thank you for admitting that. Right? Yeah, you do know what you don't know. Yeah, that's a good point, Jake. But yeah, he should just stick with what he doesn't know. All right? He's not willing to be honest with that. because in his previous statements he said he knows all kind of stuff.
No, they used Greek categories and to talk about Jesus, and they used Arabic and categories to talk about Muhammad. So everybody gets framed in a different way, and it's part of the culture and part of the historical tradition. But this experience of divinity, or what I call the superhuman, I think it's universal, and I think it's as far back as we can see. And I think it gets framed and interpreted in very different ways.
In the following sense, today we see a glowing being come down from the sky. We say it's a UFO encounter.
Yeah.
In Fatima, they say it's a Marian apparition, and Muhammad thinks it's the Archangel Gabriel. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that is what I'm saying. And so I think the orb of light really comes down and really.
Well, that sounded like perennial, right? Because it's like no matter what the phenomenon is, you can interpret it through your worldview, right? So that's to say that, you know, we don't know what we don't know, and you are going to have this built-in worldview that you interpret things through, right? So I don't know. Since he doesn't know what Muhammad's experience was, you know, or if Jesus' experience was something, I don't know, maybe he can elaborate on how those are anything like an alien encounter, right? Because I think they're being a little weird here.
It really messes with human beings. But I'm not at all persuaded by the religious reception or the religious interpretations of that.
Right.
And I'm not persuaded by the UFO interpretations either, by the way.
Right. Yeah, that was abundantly clear in your books. Let me give you a quote from your first book, actually. Jesus hardly knew himself in some clear and unequivocal way.
Yeah, but look at how he said that, right? He pointed to the religious conclusions and he said, those are ridiculous. And then he pointed to the UFO conclusions and said, whoa, but those, of course, I don't believe those ones. So you know one is sillier than the other, man. Come on, just admit it. One has thousands of years of tradition behind it, and the other is literally from fucking comic books and movies. Which one do you think is probably more fucking real, bro? Like, I mean, you know, like, why are they playing fucking games? You know what I mean? Seriously. Pretty weird.
Well, you see, he hasn't, in the beginning, he didn't make his own possessions clear, like what tradition or what his beliefs are. He didn't make that clear himself. So, yeah, like, you know, that's.
But how are aliens just as legitimate as Christ or Buddha or Muhammad? I just don't understand.
Yeah,
They're not.
They're not. Yeah, they're
like, you know.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, I mean.
And it's like,
well,
one is
he's funny.
Yeah.
Well, funny enough, what he's doing is smuggling in a new interpretation of ancient religion. That's the fucked up part of it, right? Like he's saying, I don't accept these other interpretations of mystical experience, but certainly I'm willing to entertain this newer one more because it's closer to now than the past. And it's like, okay, so how much delusion do we have now versus back then? I mean, you could argue the same amount or more now, but saying that we had less delusion now, I don't know how you could argue that, but I'd be interested to know how he justifies that.
Yeah, and this is a word salad that's on the screen right here. This is literally slop. Jesus hardly knew himself in some clear, unequivocal way. Rather, he came to or constructed his own self-understanding, whatever the fuck that means, through the abiding sense of powerful, and then get this is capital word presence, whatever the fuck that means. The capital P presence. Good Lord. That's a really odd statement. Through the sacred narratives? What sacred narratives? What a really weird interpretation. I hope this isn't his own writing, because this is trash right here. I hope they don't come out and say that this guy actually wrote this. Wow, this is powerfully inept. Let's see what
from your first book, actually.
Oh my God, he wrote it, folks. He wrote this piece of trash statement. Good Lord. Jesus literally said he knows himself and nobody else does. I don't understand, bro. Like, I'm really confused. Somebody, I don't know. Oh boy. Where are we at here?
Jesus hardly knew himself in some clear and unequivocal way.
Yeah.
Rather, he came to or constructed his own self-understanding through the abiding sense of his powerful presence through the sacred narratives of Jewish scripture, ethnic memory, and
Oh. Jewish scripture, ethnic memory, which sounds like it's Jungian, and colonial suffering, which sounds like a communist phrase. Dude, the efficacy of his magical works of healing and clairvoyance. Oh my God. That's literally what it says in the Talmud. And in the mirror of his followers' answers to his own honest question. Good Lord. This is slop, folks. This sucks.
Well, here's the other side of it. Like, again, okay, let me go back here. Colonial suffering. So again, this is a historical narrative about exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
how
he
the
said
fuck
here.
does he know? Yeah.
Well, it's about, well, again, this is where I get into my theory about Troy, Ephesus, Rome, all these things of like, what was a Jew, what was Rome, what was their relationship like, were they trying to syncretize like Persian religion with Canaanite religion with Roman and Greek religion? See what I mean? Like there's this kind of like underlying narrative that he's alluding to, colonial suffering. Well, what he's talking about, Spartacus?
I'm gonna be honest here. I feel like, you know, when you get to the Christian scholastic tradition, even compared to Islamic or Buddhist, I think it's weak because you see, you have to rely on the narratives more and more. Like it lacks like philosophical robustness, even compared to Islam.
Well,
I'm not trying
this is the
to
thing.
set people against each other.
But hold on.
I'm
But
not
here's
done
what I'm
talking
saying.
though. I'm not done
But
talking.
wait.
The
But I just want to make it
Persians did
clear.
not interact with the Canaanites that much. The Persians were not a part of the Christian heritage or legacy. They
Where's
weren't.
your evidence? Where's your evidence of that?
Where's your evidence they were and stuff? Where's your
Okay,
evidence?
Well,
so
the Greeks were a vassal state, at least some
Oh,
of
boy.
them, of the Persians. Number one. Number two, the Bible was written in Greek, not Hebrew, because we don't have any evidence of Hebrew back then, other than like a couple little tiny fragments. And again, Hebrew is very similar to Greek. So again, I think you're making a straw man argument that you don't have any evidence for. I mean, I think my side has way more evidence. I mean, if you're saying there's no connection whatsoever, but then Rome literally had Mithraic temples underneath it. I mean, what the fuck are you talking about?
let's
Yeah, I'm not saying that there's no
Okay, you guys.
connection whatsoever, but I say people overblow it. You know what I mean? Because this is a part of the Rosicrucian plan. It's the part of the plan of the Freemasons. Because they were trying to convert Zoroastrians to Christianity in India and other places. Like they sent missionaries to try to convert them. They claimed that Jesus was the Saos Child.
Right, and the Jews say that Zoroastrianism is like piggybacking off their shit, and the Zoroastrians say that Judaism came from their shit. So I mean, you have a he said, she said, but there's not a lot of Zoroastrian historians we can rely on, but there's a shitload of Jewish and British Israelist historical people we have to rely on for our narrative, right? So I mean, again, either way you go, it's like the narrative is there, whether it's true or not, right?
Let me tell you something interesting. Don't you think it's interesting that when China became Buddhist or Japan, they never had something like Japanese Indianism or Chinese Indianism? Why is it that something like British Israelism,
You want to talk about the White Lotus Society?
the White Lotus, they didn't claim they're Indians. The White Lotus, I think what you're
Or
talking
Manichaean,
about.
or you want to talk about Manichaeanism?
Yeah, Manichaeism is interesting. Yeah, it's like,
well
yeah, I
Right,
have
I'm just saying, like how like if you're I'm just trying to warn you, like you're gonna undermine yourself. That's what I'm not trying to go against you. I'm trying to warn you, like
all right, guys.
you're gonna undermine your own fucking points. I'm just letting you know.
the paths should remain separate, independent. The thing is with the philosophy, it has to do with the incarnation. I hate to say it, and the resurrection, not resurrection, but incarnation, because that is kind of universalist in itself. It kind of tries to like bring all narratives into each other already. It doesn't, when you make philosophy, you can like make it distant from like caring about worldly affairs, in some extent. God is, or whatever, or Buddha nature is. It doesn't matter what one person did 1,000 years ago, or a civilization 1,000 years ago. In some sense, like the philosophy, like I'm talking about the philosophy, like the scholastic tradition of Saint Augustine, or those people. I have read some of them. I actually have read Saint Aquinas. I've read Saint Aquinas a bit and stuff. I have read a bit of Saint Aquinas, and the point I'm getting at is it's already globalist in nature in some sense. Like what I'm trying to say. We want distance. We want distant. The missionary activities and other stuff. Let me think here. So,
Yeah, and again, like I don't want to get into like this long, drawn out debate. I'm just trying to preempt you. Like I think we should just continue covering the material because, like, I don't think either one of us need to get drawn into like a he said she said like historiographical debate about you know what I mean. Like it's not that it's not useful, but I don't think it's pertinent to like what we're covering right now.
yeah, we can
Personally,
keep going
personally.
on. Yeah, we can keep going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that video is crap. It's definitely a kind of global homo project.
No. It's not. It's not crap. This is what all the managerial class of the entire world believe, from China to India to Pakistan to wherever the fuck. Like this is what they're beating into everybody's head via the education and the computer system, right? Like that's why I think it's important. Like I don't think it's bullshit at all. I think this is like important to know. Like if you go talk to people who work at Fortune 500 companies, this is how they think, right? Like 100%.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it is important. And it stems from globalization and technological growth and stuff like that. The
Right,
attention
but I'm
for
also saying, like, they're reading these guys' books and getting, like, brainwashed into this and saying, "If you want a motherfucking job, you gotta, like, get with the goddamn program," right? Like, that's important to know, right? So, like, you're not gonna work for General Electric or Palantir or whatever the fuck without this worldview, in my opinion, right? Like, I don't think they're gonna let you in the door unless you're gonna, like, kneel down and suck the dick of secular humanism, you know?
yeah, yeah, I get your point and stuff. Just yeah, we can keep watching the video, but I like to keep things concise and incisive. And sometimes that makes things very concise. I notice most talks like that, what we're watching there, they have to gloss over the basic point, the foundational or fundamental point. I mean, I noticed that if people start with the fundamental points, maybe it's better for people to be more like computers in some sense, because by being more like a computer, they could be more incisive. But the problem is that AI has biases towards liberalism. If it didn't have bias towards liberalism, you can prompt it; it would be way better. That would be way better. That would be great. But you notice all these AI systems, they have bias towards techno-liberalism. But if you prompt it a certain way or you feed it,
But here's the thing: is the people who are building the system have that thing, right? So now they've put that into the programming, and those who try to like interfere with that programming going into the machine are not allowed into the system, right? Like you're
no,
not
you
going to
can
get
you
a
can
job in
interfere with
AI.
it. You see, the AI system isn't programmed to have the bias. It's trained. It's trained to have the bias. But you can train it again, or you can bias it in a certain direction that's closer to you. I've been feeding it stuff like Teddy. I've been feeding it stuff like yeah.
I don't think you're going to be able to do that. I don't think you're
No,
going to be
I
able to
did
do
do
that.
that. Yeah, I trained the
No,
AI. Yeah, I
no,
did.
I don't.
It's the bias.
I highly doubt that they're going to let you train the AI to like go against secular humanism. I just don't
It
think
did.
that's
I got the AI against secular humanism. I
I
did.
mean, as you and many other have told me, it's going to give you what you're looking for to get you to shut the fuck up, in my opinion, right? So,
Yeah. Uh, no, it gives good arguments. It can be unbiased. You gotta tell it, I want you to take the perspective of someone who sees technological growth negatively. You tell it that, and then it responds according to that perspective in a dynamic way.
I do think it's negative, but I'm just saying like the way that you argue against it, it matters. That's all I'm trying to get at. But yeah. But anyways, I think we should just continue like seeing what they're saying because I don't think my battle is not really with you. So I mean, ultimately, in my opinion, like I want your expertise on what they're saying because I think it'll inform your views and my views and machine's views and the audience view, right? Like I think that you have an expertise and the foundation that he's going to lay down. But I think getting up to the 55-minute mark is important because he says he smuggles a lot of shit in and then he tries to smuggle your shit in, right? So I have a view on what he's smuggling now, and then I want your expertise on what he's trying to smuggle in later. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at, right?
Yeah, it's just I tend to lose the attention span for these kind of stuff. To be honest, because he's stupid. You know, I mean, he's not stupid, but they're obviously actors. Yeah, we both agree on that. You know, like, yeah.
Yeah, they may be actors, but what they're portraying is important, right? Like because the people that they're training are running the system, right? So that's what I'm trying to get at. Or they're LARPing as if they're running the system and they're not, and the system's running them. So either way, I think it's still important, right? So you know, whether we're exposing them as panel actors or we're exposing them as actual, you know, managers of the system, either way, I think it's important.
Yeah, so I wanted to say a note about the philosophical traditions of Christianity versus Islam or Buddhism, right? Obviously, because the West is uniquely predisposed to words, right? Philosophical traditions, like for example, Plato and Aristotle, they've had a lot more written about it, right? But one could say that maybe today's philosophical aims may be closer to maybe Islam or Buddhism than Christianity, right? But yeah, definitely in the beginning of Christianity, since they already had like a bunch of stuff from Plato and Aristotle and stuff, and they compared, you know, Neoplatonism and all this stuff to Christianity, and basically the Gnostics knew about Plato, right? Because they took this doctrine of the demiurge from Plato, right? So there's interesting, philosophical speculations in the beginning of the Christian tradition for sure, and very sophisticated, for sure.
Colonial suffering through the efficacy of his magical works of healing and clairvoyance, and in the mirror of his followers' answers to his own honest question: who do you say that I am? In this reading, at least, Jesus was not asking a question for which he already had the answer. He was co-constructing his identity through the answers of his disciples. Fascinating interpretation, because it goes even stronger than I think a lot of the historical critics who claim that the early Christians didn't know who Jesus was.
I want to make sure I understand what he said.
It's kind of like basically what he said is like, yeah, basically what he's saying is like Jesus is a wizard and he kind of constructed his view of himself as he went along. And it's like that's the opposite of what the Bible teaches, right?
Well, it seemed like my interpretation, like I didn't fully catch it, but like from what it seemed that he's saying Jesus as an egregore, basically, is what it seemed like he's saying. Like that's kind of what I heard, but maybe I'm wrong. But like based on his little smirk there, it looks like he's doing a little Discordian. Jesus is an egregore, hee. Like, you know, maybe this is like Hank's mentor or something. I don't know, but let's go back. Can you go back? I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. The language he's using is very weird.
I am. In this reading, at least, Jesus was not asking a question for which he already had the answer. He was co-constructing his identity through the answers of his disciples.
See, hold on. Wait. Sorry, pause. Okay. Who do you say that I am? In this reading, at least, I don't know what he means by this reading, but okay, Jesus was not asking a question for which he already had the answer. Again, that's another assertion with no evidence. He was co-constructing his identity through the answers of his disciples. So, see, that is profoundly dishonest as to like what Christians believe, right? I think, I mean, in my opinion, it was a totally rhetorical answer, a totally rhetorical question of like, let's see what you've gained from all this, right? Like, I don't think he's like questioning his identity. Like, it makes him sound like he's like a trans shooter. What am I? What am I? What do you think I am? Like, it seems it's kind of weird. It's like this kind of weird, like woke secular humanist. He was co-constructing his identity through the answers of his. I mean, that's just a complete nonsense assertion that has no evidence whatsoever. I mean, as far as I understand, I would love to know where he's getting this from. So I just think that's an amazing statement.
answer, he was co-constructing his identity through the answers of his disciples. Fascinating interpretation, because it goes even stronger than I think a lot of the historical critics who claim that the early Christians didn't know who Jesus was. You're saying Jesus himself didn't even know who he was. Why is that?
Why does anybody know? I mean, I think if you talk to experiencers,
what a flippant response. Why does anybody know? Good Lord. Yeah, this guy's playing a lot of games.
to this day, there is a level of experience where if people are really honest, they're like, I don't know why that happened. I actually don't know who I am. You know, the ego or the self is a social contract for sure, but am I just that? I mean, I wake up every morning and I'm like, wow, that was a weird dream. Who was telling that crazy story? Well, I was, but it was a part of me I don't have access to, and I am not controlling.
Hank. Yeah, for sure, Hank. Definitely. Yeah, but that's even worse. See, you know, we were talking about that earlier, right? Like, what does it mean for, you know, for Buddha or Pinoy to have more constructive commentary than the people that are on the screen? You know, it means something dire is messed up. Like, there's an inversion of power. The people that are leading us should not be leading us. There should be other people in charge. Pretty weird.
Yeah, and I just want to say I would love for Hank to come up here and put in his 2 cents, because I think he's going to have a very pertinent take on this. So if you don't mind, I would like to send him the link, because I think his analysis on this would be very beneficial, to be honest with you. So
yeah.
And it's going off on some weird story. And I think a lot of I think most religious experiences like this to a certain extent. It's some other aspect of the human being who is having this experience or showing this to the social ego, and the social ego doesn't understand or doesn't know. And I don't see any reason why Jesus would be different.
Right.
So that's the assumption, is that he was a human being. You know,
wait, stop.
And
So
he had this
assumption. See, he's putting all these little words that's like an out for him. I just want to point that out. Like, when he's using these words, it's like basically like a little get out of jail free card he's using. So it's very
it's like
he's very carefully constructing what he's saying, you know.
Yeah, it's like people seek a finality of answers in the words of Jesus. And I guess what he's trying to say is that Jesus was trying to figure out who he is. So there is no finality of answers in his words, because he's stated that earlier, right? But having said that, like, you know, he said he couldn't define what these people's personal experience was. And earlier, they both agreed that Jesus certainly did refer to himself as God. So I don't understand where all this confusion is coming from, right? Because they agreed that the statement that I and the Father are one means that Jesus is claiming that he's God, right? So I don't know. So it's pretty weird for them to then suggest that all of a sudden he doesn't even fucking know who he is, right? Weird, but yeah.
Well, and really quick, I think I don't know if it was in this video or another video, but I have a sneaking suspicion that they're trying to smuggle in like something to the effect of like, well, yes, Jesus is God, but we're all God too, and so they're kind of sneaking in like a Luciferian, you know, Thelemite thing into it. And again, you know, whatever your opinion on that is, I think he's kind of doing it in a very roundabout, sneaky way, right? He's not being straightforward with it. He's not just saying it. You know what I mean? He's not just coming out and saying that, but I think he's kind of like in a long-winded way saying like we're all Buddhas, or we're all Jesus, or we're all God, or we're all, you know, Lucifer.
He is. Yeah, he's definitely saying something like that, to that effect. Like, he's drawing the conclusion of, you know, universalism within this message, right? Or whatever, right? Which, you know, me and Buddha can argue for hours and hours about, you know, what is universalism and so on and so forth. But that might not be pertinent to this analysis.
In him, and there was one part talking to another part. One of the things this raises for me is, first of all, that passage you read, that was really good. But that's kind of my point, is that I'm better writing than I am speaking. And so like people often write me, or they'll say, well, I'd really like to meet you. I'm like, no, you don't want to do that. You stick to the books. The books are better than the person. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to say here, is that we articulate ourselves differently in different modes or different mediums. And the books are one thing, the person's another, the dream is another, the religious experience is yet another. And certainly experiences of divinity are yet another. And I do think human beings, I debated an evangelical scholar on whether Jesus was God. And my response was, of course he was God.
Right, we're all God.
So are you. So am I. And we all have experiences of deification.
Oh, there you go, Neuro. You called it.
Yeah, I was going off of memory, but yeah, because honestly, like I don't listen very closely to like individual words when I'm doing this by myself. That's kind of why I like to record with other people's, because like I was just kind of listening in passing, and I remember just being like, "What the fuck is this guy saying?" Like, yeah. So I had a feeling it was coming. So
Yeah, he just pulled a Jack Talcott.
And again, maybe he's right, but again, he's basically said there's no truth, but oh, by the way, here's the truth. We're all God. It's like, okay, so what the fuck?
Or there's a much more basically powerful definitely more XP points, right? Marilyn, right, who also claims the same thing, but she's harder to argue against than Talcott.
Yeah. Marilyn says this with like a much harder. Like I would be much more cautious to fight with Marilyn on that, or even Twilight or some of these other people. I think because like they're more straightforward with it. This guy is like collapsed all meaning and all truth into nothing, and then said, "Oh, here's the truth. We're all God." I'm like, okay, so are you a solipsist? Or again, I think he's sneaking. See, here comes Hank. Hank, come up here if you can, man, because I think he's sneaking in solipsism. I think he's sneaking in Descartes. That's what I think that's what I personally think he's smuggling in, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, Hank said he will come up. So I send him. I mean, the link's in the chat. So if anybody wants to come through, but yeah, on the Cyber Caliphate, that's where we're at.
Well, not all of us, but there are all of these experiences in the history of religions of human deification, and I gave a few of those. And I don't think they were expecting me to say that. I think they were expecting me to be the evil liberal professor. And I was like, no, deification is like global.
This is the problem that I began with, which is there's too much, not too little.
Yeah.
Right? For most people that the evangelicals argue with, there's too little. Right? For us, it's a bit too much.
Yeah.
So they're not used to arguing with that. By the way, after some reflection, I think the difference between our positions is just a matter of where we are on the stage. Because I'm sure when you were my age or young.
So again, I was talking about this move that was made by Blavatsky, right? Oddly familiar move, right? She said, well, the Christ consciousness can be achieved by everybody, right? So it can be achieved all around the world. So we all can reach godhood, Buddhahood, and godhood and Buddhahood are like the same thing, right? So like she basically combined all this stuff, right? She combined the concept of the Messiah with the Maitreya Buddha. And then, he's basically saying, well, Christ consciousness is available to everyone. We're all, we can all become God, because the idea of Christianity is showing you that you don't need God because you are God. And that is the final evolution of religious ideals, is that man replaces God. So is he really going to die on that hill? Right? Because that is a satanic Luciferian hill. Pretty weird, right? But yeah. But yeah, I just thought I'd point that out. Pretty weird stuff, huh?
Younger or slightly older, you had to go through my process of seriously taking the faith on its own word and seeing if it holds. And your conclusion was that it does not hold.
Yeah, and of course I did that.
Right.
And
by the way, that little 5-minute thing that I just did is most likely why everyone hates me on the internet. It's like the weirdness of that speech.
Hank is here. He asked to come on the panel.
Okay, here he is. Yep. Okay. Yeah, blessings.
Yeah, I was watching from Jack's side, so I didn't see everything.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I can still man the argument that everyone is God. So I guess premise one, God created everything. Premise two, God made everything from Himself. Conclusion: all that is God. So that's how it still man that argument.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like if you take God to be like maybe a radical monist, and then maybe you could maybe lend proof for that within Christianity because we're all eating the flesh and blood of God and so on and so forth. So we're all involved in the transubstantiating of matter into godhood, or there probably is some mystical interpretations that may take a radical monistic view of like maybe we're trying to elevate matter to the Christ, but I think Blavatsky's way was pretty similar, although she didn't take that view that you just said. She took more of an eschatological view. But I think what he's trying to imply is some sort of eschatological scheme whereby Jesus is a final realization of religious preponderance, because he's saying that you can become A, you can figure out who you are on your own, and B, you can just be God.
Yes.
So
I could break my Stillman version of the argument though. So you could say, if God's omnipotent, He doesn't have to make everything from Himself. He can make things from nothing. So there's a way to vary things that to be not God. So
yeah, right. Well, that is what the claim is made in the Kabbalah, that he's created things from nothing, right? So, in terms of he's drawn back from existence to make space and room for creation, so creation would not be identical to his own,
his own being.
To his own being, exactly. Yeah. So, okay. So let's check this out.
It's not, again, that I think that the tradition or the traditions are wrong. It's just that I think that they're partial and that they give certain things, to certain communities.
Right. Fundamentalism, I think, has become quite untenable because of the tradition of historical criticism that, among others,
It was always untenable.
David Strauss.
Yeah, hold on one second.
More
Sorry,
untenable.
really
more
quick.
obviously untenable.
I just wanted to mention one other thing. Like, I also get a sense that they're trying to conflate Luciferianism and Buddhism into like a singular thing, and through that alchemy bring forth like a transhumanist doctrine. So I just want to put, again, like, that's my bias. That's what, and I think that's kind of what Theosophy was trying to do. They're trying to take Buddhism and clash it with Christianity, and then out of that make that a Luciferian doctrine where like we're all Buddha, we're all Jesus, we're all this, we're all that. Like, I could be wrong, but I don't know the full history of it, but I think that is relatively accurate. I mean, if somebody wants to correct me on that, but I don't know. Like, that's kind of where the whole like new age consciousness, as far as I understand it, that's kind of what they tried to do. But and Crowley tried to do that as well, right? So as far as I know, could be wrong, but
Yeah, you got it.
Have you investigated into historical criticism into the Quran? Because there, the tensions seem greater, right? Like in the historical criticism into the Quran, because
Oh yeah, he immediately said yes. He immediately nodded yes on the Quran historical.
There, the tensions seem greater, right? Like in the same way that I can still be a Christian if you show John and Luke don't necessarily agree. I can say, well, the large message is right, but there's a bit of errancy because of the human text. That move is not available for the Muslim because of their orthodox view of the text. So can you give an example maybe of the Quran where historical criticism has surfaced something that makes the orthodox position untenable?
Well, I'll say this. I mean, to answer your question, yes, I have looked into historical criticism in the Quran. And part of the issue or part of the problem is historical criticism comes out of the Christian tradition,
right.
The Christian and the Jewish traditions, really. And it comes out of biblical studies. And Muslims do not have that tradition, and they need to. I think that's part of the modern world, is questioning the religious text as a religious text. It's not enough to just stay inside the religion and read the text. So
Yeah, that's a pretty good point, right? Muslims have not yet made the move of historical criticism, right? So he's making a salient point. That's because Muslims have not been able to divorce themselves from their traditions and look at them, right? So his move where he said, that in order to study comparative religion, you have to first, leave the worldview that you had adopted all along for looking at the world, right, in order to start doing it, right, then no Muslims need apply, right? No Muslims are capable of studying comparative religion, in his opinion, right, as a result of this, right? Not only that, but they have no vantage point in which they could begin to, right? So he's stated very clearly here that Muslims need not apply to the game of comparative religion, right?
I have a counterexample on the panel, so there you go.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess he's not heard of us.
I just don't think that exists, in any broad fashion where it's
Right. We just don't exist, right? It's just like.
it's integral or organic to the Christian and Jewish traditions. Has been
By the way, Muslims basically innovated comparative religious study. They went to India and started writing detailed explanations about the Upanishads. They wrote
Right.
detailed explanations about, all sorts of philosophical traditions. He's completely false in his analysis.
Well, and again, he used this word again, another loaded term, organic. It's organic to Judaism and Christianity. But again, what does that mean exactly? You see what I mean? Like, it's a very peculiar term. Like, it's organic.
Yeah, it's stupid term because Abrahamism is a term for all of them, and they're all related. I know the Machine Lies agrees with it, but they all have a genealogy from the same stories.
Right. It's definitely not there's definitely no historical criticism into the tradition until I think you could argue that there's more of a complex version of this after the Jews enter into the Hellenistic sort of diaspora, right? And they're able to absorb tons of Hellenistic traditions, right? So the Alexandrian Jews, obviously, they had tons of, they had absorbed tons of historical traditions. They have tons of historical versions, right, and interpretations of the Old Testament, right? If you just look at the writings of Philo, we've been able to recount tons of historical interpretations, even inverting some of the story of Genesis, right, and so on and so forth, even creating a pre-Adamite hypothesis, right, and so on and so forth, right? So there's all sorts of stories, right, that could be hashed out.
over 220 years,
Right.
I mean, we've been doing that a long time in Europe and the US.
So no one has yet applied that same kind of rigor to the Quran, or?
Sure, you can, but it hasn't been done to the same extent, is what I would be my guess. I mean, I'm not a scholar of Islam, but it just doesn't exist in the same broad.
I see. Let me read you another quote.
It sounds like he's kind of throwing up his hands there. He's saying like, well, there isn't an attempt been made. So, but he just said that he knows about the historical interpretations of the Quran, but now he's saying, well, that traditions don't really exist because the Muslims haven't been able to attempt it. I don't understand, right?
You should probably call David Wood for help, maybe, because he doesn't seem to know anything. He doesn't know the basics.
Yeah, I mean, there's a different guy than David Wood that argues that's also paid by David Horowitz, right? That's basically arguing a similar thing, but he's arguing about historical criticism of Islamic ideas. Now, there are tons of people who attempt this, right? And some of them are mythicists, right? So obviously they wouldn't be regarded under the consensus of the modern scholarship, but then there would be others that may the top theory I could think of is that there's 7 different dialects of Arabic during the construction of the Quran. And if you look at those kirat, they're called kirat, right? You can observe different meanings, right, depending on what dialect you use to construct, but I think all of those were unified into a single dialect, right? So basically the idea is that the Quran was used to create a single language, a single Arabic language, right? And this happens a certain time period after the death of the prophet. So they hold that there's certain discrepancy. If they want to study classical Arabic, you come to the meanings of the Quran. But we've looked at the comparison of certain of these, so-called different dialects, and they're not all completely different. Like they all pretty much basically say the same thing, right? So I don't know. So some of these differences are being, inflated by people who, I don't know. And obviously, there's lots of manuscript traditions in Christianity, right? The historical, I think, proof behind the Christian message, just behind the ideas that, there's so much text and evidence that supports that these were historical figures, right? There's more things that authenticate Jesus being a historical figure than, Caesar and, even Pontius Pilate or any of these other figures, right? So
By Gnostic, Alan Moore means a particular kind of direct and immediate experiential knowledge of one's own divinity that cannot be reduced to reason or faith and stands very much opposed to the consensus reality of society and religion. Faith.
Wow. So he's coming right out and just as a full-blown Gnostic, right?
Is for sissies who daren't go and look for themselves.
Whoa, sissies.
That's my basic.
And earlier he said it's fine if they have no balls, right? So weird, right?
Position. Magic is based upon gnosis, direct knowledge.
Wow. Holy moly.
You should be seeking this knowledge to expose evil. That's something Christians are supposed to do.
We don't seek knowledge. That's Gnosticism.
That's Gnosticism.
You seem to have quoted this. That was Alan Moore, right? Yeah, that's Alan Moore's quote, exactly. Yeah. But you seem to have quoted that approvingly.
Yeah.
My question for you is, do you think faith is a valid epistemic mode at all?
Yes, for some people, not for me. I mean, look, most human beings don't have the time or the luxury to ask questions of their culture and their tradition. And so I think faith is this sort of ascent to altered states that exist in the past. It's clearly the norm in human history. It's the norm because, again, most people don't have the luxury or the time to ask serious questions. I don't think faith is an option. It's not a pressing option for me because.
So there's another, I guess, flat out assertion, right? He just said that religious experience of the past were just altered states of the mind, right? So
because it requires a kind of intellectual
suspension,
right. And I'm not willing to do that. Now that's a choice, Jonathan. That's my choice. If there are intellectuals who are willing to do that because they see that the tradition has some
reasons for them to leap.
Yeah. And I respect that. I honor that. But that is not certainly my choice, and it's certainly not my conclusion.
But Jeff, isn't that another leap of faith in the following sense?
Yeah.
That you have faith in your reason or in your direct experience, that is sufficient to grasp at the most ultimate questions in the universe. And that is, once you frame it that way, that is a statement that requires some faith. It's not clear at all why we humans should be able.
Exactly. Precisely, man. He hit the nail on the head.
Through either direct experience or reason to get at these fundamental truths, right? You certainly wouldn't say, maybe you would, a dog would be able to do calculus. Then why are we able to grasp at through our own faculties the ultimate truth?
So why are people able to grasp what they experience as ultimate truth in all these traditions, in all these cultures? That's always the question I come back to is why is that? And
he got him. He doesn't have an answer to that.
the answer of faith doesn't have an answer to that. You
Yeah, but neither do you. So what's the problem?
Yep, no, he doesn't. Let's
you
see him
select
spin.
you usually
Yeah, let's watch him spin.
Right, exactly. I mean, he did put his head up to the sky as he said it, so that might be it. It's interesting.
it's your own tradition that you happen to grow up in or you happen to be a part of, and you say that's the ultimate truth. You believe that, you have faith that that's true, but I'm just like, that's too convenient. It's just too convenient for me. And it is a position, maybe you could call it a position of faith, but for me it's a position of gnosis because it's rooted in people's experiences and people's direct experiences.
And you think, so you are making the claim that direct human experience can get at the ultimate in some sense?
Yes, I am. I am making that claim. And that's sort of the realist impulse of my scholarship, is that I do think human beings have access to ultimate truth.
What about animals? Can they have
I don't
direct-
know.
Right.
They might as well. I can't
Right,
talk to
right.
animals. I
Your
can't-
dog might be enlightened the whole time, actually.
Yeah,
That's why they're so happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is just basically a very just straight up form of humanism, right? Man is a measure of all things. Man has access to ultimate truth, right? I think that's just a bold-faced assumption, right? But who's to say that the quest for ultimate truth won't kill us all? Right?
Listen, I don't make a distinction. There's this wonderful text that a physicist wrote, and basically he says, well, do dogs have souls? And he says, of course not, but neither do human beings. And he has this wonderful idea that there's one light and there's one form of mind, and we're all manifestations of it, that he draws from Sufism. And I'm much closer to that than I am.
Well, let's talk about that a bit, because we talked a lot about Western.
He's a Buddhist Gnostic Sufi. Let's get it straight.
Orthodoxy. And now I want to move to the Eastern Orthodox traditions. In your books and in our conversation, you've said that your metaphysics aligns a lot better with them.
It does.
So what have you taken from the non-dual traditions of Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, and why don't you consider yourself like just a heretical Hindu, a heretical Buddhist, and practice in that tradition? And why do you still kind of distance yourself from those traditions?
Yeah, it's because, well, what I take from non-dualism, both in its Hindu and Buddhist and Taoist forms, is a kind of serious questioning of God and the soul. This idea that God is somehow objective, that there's some being out there that created me and that I can relate to this being, or this idea that I have a soul. These are very dualistic notions. And once you adopt a non-dual world, you no longer accept that God is external to one, or that there's something called a soul. And you can find these experiences in the West as well. These are in the mystical authors as well. So I see it everywhere. I don't see it just in the East, although it's more developed. It's more developed in Asia.
And the metaphysics aligns a lot better.
Yeah. Now, why don't I call myself a heretical Hindu or Buddhist or that? Well, because they won't have me, and a lot of those identities require what I would think of as faith. They require me to have devotion to some guru or some swami or some lama or something, and I'm constitutionally unable to do that.
I mean, he could become Hindu, but he won't even be heretical. They'll say there's be another person there. So there's no gatekeeper there. So he's making excuses.
Right.
I can't do that. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Why? But you did do that when you were young. Yeah, why?
It's a good question. I think I'm hopelessly democratic and individualist and Western to be.
Okay, so there's his biases. That's kind of like his religion. He didn't really say it earlier, but he does have faith in things. He said faith is for sissies, but he has the most sissy type of faith, which is just a faith in the general consensus.
Yeah, he's culturally Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah, democratic individual. You see, the thing is, the one vehicle that leads to non-duality, as expressed in the Lotus Sutra and various other sutra, there are skillful means to reach the one vehicle, And those skillful means can involve practices like koan study or sasen. Yeah,
And
but
what's the
that
point of the
requires,
practice? The point of the practice is to get rid of your individuality.
yeah,
Good lord. What a stupid idiot.
yeah, he's a stupid idiot. But also, he was acting like they won't accept me. But you can go initiate into various schools or traditions. You know, there are initiated. Like there were Japanese people who came to America. They're part of a line of figures who receive transmission. Of course, we live in a degenerated age, but they are still authentic teachers who came to America. And you know, I went to one of those Sankas. You know, the triple jewels are important in Buddhism. The triple jewels are Sanka, Buddha, Sanka, Buddha, Dharma. Sanka, Buddha, Dharma. We have chants for the triple jewels that you accept and all of that. You know, he just wants to. He doesn't want the effort to put in. He just wants to talk and stuff. He doesn't really want to. He just want to talk about and stuff. That's the thing. You know? That's what I see from it. And he loves his freedoms or what they call freedom or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me get this straight. He's a non-dual individualist.
That was so dumb. The thing is, I do wonder, like, should we all just stop caring? Because there is, like, nothing... Basically, there is nothing we can do about it, right?
Be really frank about it. I think there's a serious conflict between devotion to a realized human being and this idea of the freedom of the spirit or the freedom of the intellect to ask any question. I think there's a real conflict there. And it's not that I don't think that the human being has had an experience of non-duality or isn't realized. I'm like, yeah, you obviously are, but I still can't assent to that.
Yeah, and this is kind of a tension or maybe an imminence. I was trained by Hegelians, so I go after these imminent kind of things. In your thought, I think there is a tension, like, for example, how I
pause it, back up. I think this is one of the key moments where he says, I was trained by Hegelians. Like, just back up like 10 seconds before he says that. I think there's something weird going on right here too.
Yeah, we're watching a conversation between the Hegelian and the Gnostic, pretty much.
Or maybe an imminence. I was trained by Hegelians, so I go after these imminent kind of...
It's an imminence, yeah.
Yeah, so back up one more time. I just want to, like, what is he really trying to say right here? Like, I think there's some, this guy is now smuggling in something. I just want to make sure can you translate what he's saying in Hegelian language?
But I still can't assent to that.
Yeah, and this is kind of a tension or maybe an imminence. I was trained by Hegelians, so I go after these imminent kind of things. In your thought, I think there is a tension.
So you want to know what that means?
Yeah, I don't understand what he's trying to say there.
Yeah, like the whole tension between being and becoming in the Hegelian tradition is a tension between immanence and transcendence. Do you know what those two words mean, Neuro?
I do, but can you just refresh for the sake of, like, so it's very clear in this
Immanence,
context?
immanence is about the sacred aspect of the moment now. Right. Transcendence is about how we can ascend the material space, right? So how can we bring God into this space now when God transcends reality that we can perceive? Get it right?
Right. And I would say what they're really doing is creating a false dialectic, meaning that they're trying to say, well, we got to compartmentalize this. We can't have both. We have to have one or the other, basically, is what it seems like.
Yeah. So he's saying that he's trying to get to the immanence of it. So he's saying that because he's trained by Hegelians, he wants to get to the actual fact of the matter, right? How do we bring God into this experience now? Right, is what he's trying to say in translation.
As if you could separate it, of course, right?
Of course, yeah.
The assumption that you could separate it, anyways, right?
Right, because earlier they said basically that's impossible, right? So yeah, or at least this guy did, right? He said everyone's God right now. So,
and like, for example, how I pointed at you do have a faith in a certain Gnostic realism. There are these premises you seem to hold, maybe just on your culture in the same way you critique others.
Yeah, he's maxed out his faith, man. You act like the faith is for the religious people, but looks like now, just 10 minutes later in the conversation, you have faith in all these things. Fucking weird.
Of just being culturally relative. Yeah.
Yeah, but like my cultural convictions in the individual or in the relevancy of asking questions. I mean, this is why I developed this sort of idea of the humanist too. I really don't take that as ultimate either. I really don't. And I mean, I often joke, I don't believe in myself. And what I mean by that is I actually don't believe in a self.
Right.
I think that's a cultural and grammatical construction, and I'm convinced by the arguments.
What the fuck is even going on here?
Well, he's an anti-realist, but the thing is, well, it's context dependent. So there are cases where he does believe himself, and he makes performance contradictions. So he's just sloppy. He reminds me of breakfast tacos. He's slopping his language.
Well, Hank, would you argue he's kind of doing like a inverted or like a crypto solipsist argument or something like that? Or
yes,
it seems pretty weird. Yeah,
he's literally a democratic, individualist, non-humanist, non-dualist that doesn't believe in the self. What the fuck is going on? He literally said all that.
What's next to you, libertarian too?
You know, like, yeah, like.
Well,
Yeah,
you know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Nick Land with his like Gnostic Calvinism or something like that, or some shit. It's like kind of like this, like we have fate, but we don't actually have that. We have like destiny, but we don't have that. We have like solipsism, but I'm not going to call it solipsism, so I'll say that I don't believe in myself, but I'm performatively contradicting myself by talking about myself. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like he took Aristotle and like shot him full of methamphetamine and like put him on LSD and put him in a cave and let him ramble for like five years or something. I mean, that's what it's saying. I mean, I don't want to like be an asshole to him because this is very fascinating, but like I don't know what he's trying to say exactly. Like if you look at his shirt, it looks kind of like an acid trip. You know what I mean? So
he doesn't know either. Trust me, he doesn't know either. I talked to enough of these people. Like I talked to Gen X Jeff and Breakfast Tacos who say the same nonsense.
Against it, from neuroscience to Buddhist philosophy, and I just think that's true. But that doesn't mean I'm not a human being, and I don't have an ego, and I'm not Jeff Kripal, and I'm not a professor, and I'm not here. I mean, those are all true too.
Right.
So this is why I talk about the humanist too. It's not to It's not to affirm two substances. It's just to affirm this contradiction or this complexity of things.
Right. Yeah. So.
He's like, did you like smoke mescaline before you came in here or what?
Yeah, because he literally just said he's a, like non-dual individualist that doesn't believe in two substances, because if you affirm your individualism within the non-dual system, you're basically a closet dualist.
Well,
so I don't understand, like, weird.
Well, and also one thing he just said is like, I don't know that there's a thing such as human. So again, and if you don't believe me, let's back up 30 seconds because Brown's Boy said no one's pushed for transhumanism. Did I miss it? I mean, he just said there is no such thing as me. There's no such thing as human.
Yeah,
I mean,
he did. Yeah, he did say that. Yeah.
And if that's not transhumanism, I don't know what is. I mean, essentially, he's basically collapsing the meaning of the word human into nothing. So, or into whatever you define it as, I guess. Right. So.
Well, I mean, he's saying that I don't think he's affirming materialism just yet. But
don't worry, that's coming. I think that's the next thing he's about to do is like affirm and deny materialism like in one breath, essentially. But I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's about to come up. So, but I think we should back it up to where he says there is no such thing as human, because I think that is like in my opinion, if that's again, I think that is by definition
Yeah.
transhuman, right?
Yeah,
My
it
opinion.
doesn't necessarily lead to transhumanism. You know, when you get deep into certain ontological questions, you know, it depends on your, you know, ontological beliefs. You know, I want to say also that, you know, individualism, in the sense that the Enlightenment era thinkers, I think Hobbes, you know, that I'm against, but individual, as in like having your own first person perspective and qualia thing, is undeniable. I would say that, you know, meditating a lot, you know, it kind of makes the ego evaporate, but it could lead to more spontaneity also, like spontaneity in a more authentic manner, like, you know, like the Tao Te Ching talks about and stuff. You know, it's
let's
not like
let's
oblivion or
well,
something.
let's not mix Buddhism and Taoism now. But
Well, there's a
anyways,
difference, though. You see, because Zen or Chan, which is
all right,
Mahayana,
well,
they actually
try to have,
mutually influence each other.
don't
There
try
is
to
a
have your
difference.
cake. Don't try to have your cake and eat it too, though. Okay.
No,
Yeah.
there's a difference, though. See, Mahayana and Zen Chan, I mean, no, Zen and Taoism, they mutually influence each other. Like they were in close proximity and stuff. Like,
Yes. So, Jack, I want you to remember the principle of explosion from in classical logic from any contradiction from a code. A theorem according to which any statement can be proven from a contradiction. So, in classical logic, if you make a contradiction, you can prove anything you damn well please, which is why he may be doing this. So, we have to kind of ignore the fog and look for what he actually believes from his actions.
Right. Well, and also, you know, I'm sorry to be a dick, but let's go back and just make sure we hear him say, "There's no such thing as human. There's no such thing as myself," because again, I think that's a huge.
Yeah, I
hell,
went
but
back
also,
10 seconds.
yeah,
I
but
only have
also,
30 more minutes. So
yeah, I get it. But and then after this, after he says the material thing, I think let's go to the part that Avian wants to talk about, just to, you know, in the sake of time, but. Also, Hank, if you hear anything that's like solipsist, please point that out, because I think that he is smuggling in Descartes, in my opinion. But how exactly he's doing that, I'm not 100% sure, but I definitely think he's smuggling that in personally. But
Copy.
yeah, so we can continue this at another time, but I have 30 more minutes, so let's see how much more we can get through.
I mean,
Yeah.
those are all true too.
Right.
So this is why I talk about the humanist too. It's not to
Right.
It's not to affirm two substances. It's just to affirm this contradiction or this complexity of things.
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting when I tell my Christian friends about Buddhist metaphysics and emptiness and how there is no self. They say this is completely ridiculous, and I'm like, and Trinitarianism is like a piece of cake that you can just swallow without. Anyways. Yeah, this is a very classical Buddhist idea, both that emptiness itself is empty, right? As well as certainly the no self. That I would say is a very distinctly kind of Buddhist position, contra Hinduism, certainly contra the Western monotheisms.
But
so,
hold on,
yeah, why are you convinced of that?
I just want to point out that the term emptiness implies vessel. So how can emptiness exist without a vessel to exist within? So, I mean,
okay, listen, Nirojak, you know, emptiness is. I'll just make it simple for you. Okay, it's the idea that that there are no like reality is not made of isolated little objects carrying fully independent private properties. It's that things, you know, like a coin. Okay, let's say there's a coin. The coins are not fully definite in the ordinary sense. They remain mysteriously correlated. You know, like it's called Bell's theorem. It's basically that things are entangled. They're not like pre-written and independent, you know, with their own private information.
Right, but wait, hold on. But remember what you said before. We take language at face value. So again, now you're saying, oh well, it means this, that, and the third, and shit. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, like, let's be consistent here, right?
Yeah, it's close to the literature, but using illustrating. It's basically that things do not have independent underlying intrinsic nature, that they arise in dependence on other stuff to be understood.
Right, but that's not the definition of. Well, wait, that's not the
Relational.
definition of empty. That's not the definition of empty. So
I got you. The world is the vessel, Jack. The world is the vessel.
It's called Shonyata in the literature. He was talking about emptiness and the Shunyata Buddhist sense. That kind of
Right,
has
but
parallels.
right, but
Parallels.
without a vessel, without something to contain emptiness, there is no emptiness, right? You can't have emptiness and nothing, right? So
It's not nothing, but that's not what emptiness is talking about. Emptiness is kind of talking about how yin and yang arise dependent on each other, kind of like that. Like they're
right, so
inextricably
it
tied and
implies that there's a
entangled.
substance. So it implies substance, right?
No, it does not imply substance. It implies that that things lack intrinsic underlying nature, that they lack substance. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
you don't need
So
substance, you just need contrast.
it's
Yeah.
paradoxical and it doesn't have any logical or coherent thing, right? So again,
Nope,
just like Christianity,
you
just
don't
like
need substance,
Christianity,
you
it
just
has
need
no
contrast.
it has no logic, it has no coherence, it has no
I
meaning. It
never
clashes
argued
all
that
meaning in on
Christianity
itself.
has no logic or coherence. I said the foundational core beliefs of Christians are the incarnation and resurrection. That's what I said. Those are the
Right,
central
but you're
beliefs.
changing the definition of empty to mean like whatever you're just saying now, which is not the definition of empty. So okay, but
The
anyway, I
vessel's
just want to point that
the
out.
world's a vessel. It's that simple.
No, the thing is, let's not say emptiness. Let's just say shanyata, because emptiness is the English translation of shanyata. It's just the Buddhist idea, shanyata.
Right,
Yeah.
but again, he's speaking to an English audience. He's not saying all that, right? So he's just
Yes, translated as emptiness,
right.
in
So
English
again,
language.
you see what I'm saying, where people are like saying, well, the Bible says this and Christianity says that because that's what the words say." It's like, well, it's not that simple, and you're like, no, it is that simple. So I'm just pointing out, like, everything that you've now claimed about Christianity is now going to apply right back to you. So again, that's why I warned you. Is like, you're digging your own grave, but that's what I'm trying to explain to you. So go ahead, let's continue.
So what's wrong with just having the world be the vessel for your for emptiness? No, Jack.
Well, they reject material, so that's.
I
that doesn't
reject
really-
material too. So what's wrong with having the world be the vessel?
Well, is the world material or is it something else?
No, it's ideas. Now, what's wrong with the world being a vessel?
Right. So the world is mind. So now we're in the world of mind or consciousness or something like that, right?
Yeah. So what's
okay. Well,
where's the
but you
contradiction?
see- okay, but see, that's not what the world means to most people. The world means like material existence.
Bandwagon
Yeah,
scholar.
both of these guys are basically idealists. Neuro.
Yeah, I might be too. I'm just saying, like, the words that you use are gonna be imprinted upon depending on the person that you're talking to, right? So that's kind of what I'm trying to get at, right? So
Yeah. So when you say most
right.
people believe
So what I'm
this,
saying
well,
is
I
that
don't care.
language has implications, and you can't get around that. That's what I'm trying to get at. Go ahead.
Yeah, but what most people believe is stupid. So I reject that on its face.
Yeah,
I'm just pointing out that you've undermined your own arguments. But yeah, I get you.
I
I'm talking to Avian, not you, Hank. I get where you're coming from. I'm just trying to point that out to Avian.
No, I don't see it. I just try to keep it concise, and incisive. The core belief of Western Christianity is incarnation and the resurrection. Without those two, it's not Christian.
Again, but you don't know the definition of incarnation and whatever else you just said. I mean,
I
you don't.
I do know those definitions.
You don't
I was,
because you're not taking it on its own terms. You're not taking it on its own terms. You're just saying incarnation, but again, that's a matter of faith, not fact. And just like how you're saying, well, I believe in emptiness, and then you're like, well, not the general term emptiness. Is this other thing that I can't put into English words, but you just got to trust me, bro, that it's real. And there, you know what I mean? Like, again, you've now undermined your own position.
You want metaphysical argument or something like regarding whether incarnation?
I actually don't, but I'm just pointing out how like your own arguments against Christianity has now undermined your arguments for for Buddhism. So
But have I argued against Christianity since now? Have I made an argument against Christianity?
I mean, many times you have, and in
Yeah,
this very thing, you said like, well, Christianity, you straw man Christianity to say, well, it's the incarnation and whatever else you said. So I mean, again,
personally, I don't like the incarnation. Okay, even if there's a God and I'm wrong, I just can't get behind the incarnation personally. It's just I just don't. I respect it, but I just don't like it. Okay, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Right, and I don't like chocolate ice cream, and I like vanilla ice cream, and I get it.
I
But
mean,
again,
it's just wrong to me. You know, it's just wrong. That's all
Yeah.
I'm saying. You know, like
I don't like you know, Britney Spears' second album, but you do or whatever. I mean, I get it, but
yeah,
so
yeah,
anyway,
yeah. Incarnation.
but again, if we're talking about preference versus like the language and how the language is used, that's another argument. But anyway, I want to get back to the analysis
Yeah,
while we have
what
time.
I think
because
is
we're running out of
true. What I think is true is emptiness based on my own experiences. Shanyata, that's what I think is true. That anything we can grasp is empty, is impermanent, and it rises in relation to other things, and that the true nature of the mind is imperishable, ungenerated. You know, emptiness is empty too. So there you go. So yeah.
Yeah.
I just see so much evidence for it.
Please.
For example, death. You know, I mean, every human being on this planet is going to die. Life is going to annihilate the ego of every single person, all 8 billion people. So clearly,
again,
that's
another
not,
assumption,
that's not
another
ultimate.
assumption, and another assertion with no evidence.
Yeah, this is the materialism part. I take it.
Yeah, he's getting to this materialism right now.
Okay, but you know better than I the research coming out of UVA and reincarnation. You know very well how the soul exists in the Christian.
Well, again, so what? So you have these reincarnation memories. I understand that the ego or the self is that people have extraordinary experiences of it around death. And the thing about reincarnation is these are memories that children have. We don't actually know that these things exist.
He said, "So what?" What a flippant response, honestly.
Yes.
Hold it. We know the memories exist because they can reference them, idiots.
Right.
Well, and again, I think he's smuggling in solipsism right here, in my opinion. So this is kind of what I'm trying to get at. But
yeah, he denied they had memories. Like it's just like no. It's like weird.
To say that clearly you're not making the claim, maybe you are, that physical death, it just well, this is the knockdown argument for non-self, because the Christians will say, well, the soul survives and there will be a physical resurrection.
What's your evidence for that? I mean, again,
you don't believe a soul or something survives after death.
I think
he said it doesn't, period. And then he said, what's your evidence for that? This guy's a friggin' idiot, dude. Like, what? What evidence do you have that the death is all there is? You fucking moron. Like, what the hell?
Consciousness survives. I'm not sure the soul. I don't think the soul does. I don't think immortality is personal. And I do think that there is a survival of persons, beyond death, but I don't think it's ultimate.
What?
In other words, somebody can have reincarnation.
Uh-huh.
Well, they just get an extra life like Super Mario, of course.
Right.
Memory, somebody could have a near-death experience.
Mediumship.
All these things can happen. Mediumship can happen, and I think they're all.
Yeah, that's when that's when the big guy puts another coin in, right?
Yes.
Another life.
All real in the sense that they actually happen, but I don't believe for 1 second that Jeff will exist, in any sense, down the pike.
Okay, well, this is a very interesting claim, right? Because again, let's take the reincarnation data where
again, it's temporary.
Right. So it seems to me all the phenomenon you mentioned there, and it's actually really surprising in this interview. I wasn't expecting this, which is great. It seems like the easiest explanation for all of this data that mediums talking to spirits, if you take the data seriously, the reincarnation data, sightings of dead people, is that there is some continuation of the person after death. I mean, it doesn't necessitate that.
But I think there is. I just don't think it's ultimate. I don't think it's permanent. I think there is continuation of the personality after death. But
okay, so this is just the Buddhist position then, because they also.
Well, this is why I joked that I think, well, maybe the Buddhists have it right. I'm persuaded by that. Just from the data and from people's experiences that I hear about over and over and over again. I'm like, yeah, the personality exists. Yeah.
Sounds like he believes in ghosts. I'm just gonna put that out there.
No, it's kind of clear that there's the first death where your body dies, and second death is when you're gone. So That's you don't even have to believe in any metaphysics to know that. That's just plain, just patently obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pinball machine.
I think the repository consciousness, as the Lancaster talks about, some degree of independence from brain activity. So memory is its own localized field, but the memory itself, it's like transforming or something, unless one purifies that with prajna paramita, with meditation and other stuff. There's a causal continuum that continues from this life to the next. I don't think there is a permanent self that goes through that causal continuum. It's more like seeds that you plant through this life, and so, and that has certain energy, like habit energy, habit energy that goes from this life to the next. The different Buddhists describe rebirth differently and stuff, but overall it involves volitional dispositions sprouting from to the next life and stuff. So yeah, there is rebirth and stuff in Buddhism and stuff like that. I accept rebirth. Yeah, I think rebirth is true. Stuff like that. I think the memory and the habit energies, they're kind of like soil in like some other space of mind or something like that. And that soil is like, like sprouting and other stuff. It's kind of like morphic resonance, but not exactly, but there is some overlap with morphic resonance, stuff like that. You see that in the Lankavatara Sutra and stuff like that, and other sutras too, and stuff. Yeah, Buddhists don't agree on every single thing. There are variations in the school, just like with Christianity and other traditions, and even Islam. There's variations, different schools and other stuff. Different interpretations of the foundational beliefs.
Yes, there are reincarnation memories. Yes, there are all these phenomena, but none of that means that the self or the soul is ultimate. So, I mean, I've been to UVA, I've been to the department, and there's this whole, I don't know what it's not out like now, but when Bruce was not retired, he had all these filing cabinets behind him of near-death experiences, and you'd walk across the hallway to Jim Tucker's office. Jim's retired now too, and there were all these filing cabinets on children who remember previous lives. I'm like, well, how are those connected? Nobody knows. Nobody says. I'm like, wait, there's a one life model here and there's a multiple lives model
I think
here.
we should move to
What's
the part
going
that
on?
Avian wants to cover briefly, because I want to see what he says about his non-dualism or whatever, like, because I don't understand what that
Dual
means.
aspect monism. It's in the description. You can click dual aspect monism.
It's basically a theory that was adopted by Spinoza, and also Dr. Scribina has his own version of it, right? So, yeah.
He actually sounds more like a neutral monist, though, when you hear him talk, which is kind of weird. But that is kind of has some similarities with dual aspect monism.
But he's repping your set, so I want to see how he reps your set. That's what I want to see.
Okay. Well, you go to description and click it in the description. Dual aspect monism.
No, I want to see what he says. That's the point.
Yeah, you gotta go to the description.
No, I found it. I see where it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right.
So we've talked about the first part, critique of orthodoxy. We talked about the critique of naive materialism. Now let's move to your actual theory, which is the dual aspect monism.
Yeah, so dual aspect monism basically says that there's a mental world and there's a material world that we all assume, but that they emerge from this common source, which we don't generally have access to, this unus mundus, or this one world, to speak in Carl Jung's terms. And I find that incredibly powerful, because it keeps a lot of things on the table. And the example I always give is synchronicity, where something is happening in the physical world that corresponds basically perfectly to something happening in the mental world, and there isn't a physical causal relationship between them. If they emerge from the same unus mundus,
that explains it.
That explains it to me. I mean, it's like, yeah, they correspond because they emerge from the same thing, and that same thing is neither mental nor material.
Right. So I see the advantage of this over Cartesian dualism, but what is the advantage of dual aspect monism compared to regular old monism, like idealism, for example?
Well, I certainly assume that there's a mental world that's looking out onto a material world. I mean, dual aspect monism explains that for me. It explains that experience, that common ordinary experience of two-ness, which I think a lot of human beings walk around assuming is the case. But what dual aspect monism gives me is it also explains the moments of unity, or those weird experiences that speak to some deeper unity that is neither mental nor material. And it also, the thing that really fascinates me about paranormal phenomena, one of many things, is that they're physical.
Right.
They're precognition.
The icon, right? That's a public physical thing, right?
It's material, but it's also mental. There's a meaning that's being communicated through this material object. And this is why I kept saying to you, I don't really have any problem with materialism. I just think it's incomplete. Because I think there's this whole other mental world, and then there's this unus mundus below the two that I think is even more interesting.
Does this position commit you to a kind of panpsychism?
It does.
So the chair is conscious in some sense.
The chair is a material object, but there's a mentality that's perceiving it, and deeper down there is no distinction. So
I see. The chair is not conscious.
Yeah, right. But deeper down in some other realm, the distinction between the mental and material does not exist.
Right. So one view of panpsychism states that an atom is conscious and the chair is conscious, but you were saying it's almost like we are the ones who are making the chair conscious, or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm saying, Jonathan. I mean, this is why I don't have any problem with science. It's the mental perceiving the physical or the material and performing all kinds of mathematical equations on it. But there's always a mental kind of material relationship here. And what I'm trying to say is there's something below that or deeper than that explains the science and the materialism.
So what you've defined as the
I don't know what to say to that. I mean, yes, I guess, but I don't know how that relates to anything else you said, basically.
He's saying that, the way I interpret him, from what I see, is that he doesn't like the monotheistic traditions, but something about the Eastern traditions like Buddhism or Taoism he also sees that as tying into panpsychism or dual aspect monism, and so he
Yeah, but
likes
I mean,
that.
again, I don't know how panpsychism means that you have to reject monotheism. I don't understand the connection there.
He's kind of going a little bit because he kind of just said within a very small span of time that he thinks that you can have both mental and physical properties, but then he said at some level they're all the same thing. So in a way that kind of explains dual aspect monism, right? Because the mental and the physical properties align in some sort of basic, sort of sublation, of their entire, schema. So basically and obviously that, so he's saying he wants there to be physical matter, and he wants there to be a way in which we perceive it, but that perception is also a basic aspect of reality. It's not something that's sort of emanating or extruding from the physical matter, right?
Yeah, they're like two different perspectives or manifestations of a single underlying reality, basically.
Yeah, it's like Spinoza's answer to Cartesian dualism.
Yeah, that's right. It's very close to Scribina, which was my
So
first.
yeah, but I'm saying he is kind of smuggling in some form of solipsism, right? So I mean,
he said nothing that strange in that little part. I think he's really kind of badly laying out this philosophical tradition, right? Because he could have just started with Spinoza and just explained his theory. I don't know.
yeah, I just want to mention a couple things before we get off here, because I do want to revisit this at a different time when we have more time. But
yeah,
the chandelier holds significant occult and esoteric symbolism, themes of illumination, divine knowledge, and the light bearer, quote unquote, Luciferian concept. And yeah, so beyond mere decoration, they represent light and darkness and occult philosophy. And then chandelier represents the light bearer or Lucifer as a force for knowledge. Swinging chandeliers, you know, in Eastern Orthodox or some esoteric traditions, chandeliers are swung during specific profound rituals such as Pascha or at the chanting of Polyelios, whatever that means. I don't know what that means, but the presence of angels who dance and rejoice around the throne of God, the creation of the world. And actually, I had to redo this because I did the search for this before, and it immediately went to Luciferianism, and then I came back to the page, and it deleted the whole Luciferian angles. I had to go look it up again, so I thought that was pretty weird. But it says the axis mundi and macrocosm. Suspended from the ceiling, chandelier represents the axis mundi, the cosmic axis, connecting the earthly realm to the celestial dome above, as above, so below. And it goes into sacred geometry, Kabbalistic, the Sephira layout, the Kether tied to the tree of life, the wheel of creation, alchemy and illumination and gnosis, esoteric light, Luciferian principles, crystal refraction of the multiverse, the mirror matrix. And then I said, well, what traditions does this relate to? It says Gnosticism and Neoplatonism, Kabbalah, Freemasonry, Hermeticism, alchemy. So again, I'm just wanted to put that out there that they're definitely like pushing some sort of symbolism, in my opinion. So
I think you're pulling that symbolism, in my opinion. You're pulling it. Because every time I talk to you, you're chasing after it.
Right. I'm sure they just decided to record an interview with a chandelier and black, everything around them. And I'm sure, yeah, it's all.
Overall, I think that video was not that great. It's it kind of spread too many misconceptions. I don't like the manner in which they speak. Kind of like wishy-washy, really wishy-washy video. It's not direct. It's not concise. It's not like listening to Scribina. Scribina is very, scholarly and very precise in its way of speaking.
Or Castro. I mean, they just sucked in general.
But they're selling. Look, they're selling something. That's my point. They're selling you a worldview as a part of another thing that they're not being direct about. That's my point. But I get
You
where
mean
you're going.
like Jack Tucker?
I agree with you on that, yeah.
I mean, I think they're selling transhumanism, but that's just my personal opinion.
Well, you can make a better pitch than that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to go back and dissect this a little bit more on my own, but like, I'm pretty confident that they're trying to sell whatever. And again, I'm not saying I'm totally against panpsychism. Like, generally speaking, I think panpsychism and like animism are pretty, relatable. But again, to like abstract that into like, well, therefore secular humanism must be right. I mean, I don't know how you get to that, but you know what I mean? So
Here's what I'm going to do, No Jack. I'm going to look for a half-decent pitch for transhumanism. Then you can dissect that. Because this is just sloppy.
Yeah, I agree. I want to just say that I agree what they're arguing can enable and facilitate transhumanism, but they're not promoting it. They're not pushing it, though. But what they are saying does ultimately enable and facilitate it. So that's there. But you see, the thing is, a lot of people, they could be saying that too without realizing that they're enabling and facilitating the growth of transhumanism. With their liberalist rhetoric. Because he did say I'm like a democratic individualist. By simply saying that, he doesn't. Maybe he's not aware of it. Maybe he is that indirectly pushes for the acceleration or something. Does seem to be the case. The techno-liberalism we talk about. So I would say enable and facilitate. If you want more about Buddhism, you can ask me any questions right now. I can tell you about Mahayana.
Well, I don't think we have a lot of time, but I mean, again, I don't even think that like everything that Descartes or Spinoza said is probably wrong, right? I'm just saying that like it's being used for a particular purpose. Clearly, to me, I mean, what purpose exactly I'm not sure, but again, I don't think you can separate, all the things he said in the beginning, and then he just goes and makes this argument that's coherent, and then like uses that as his foundation of like all the other bullshit he said. Like, I think that's pretty weird, So, and I think it's like not. I don't think it's because he's stupid necessarily. I mean, maybe he is, or maybe he just did a lot of LSD, but he seems to be pretty, sure of what he's doing, right? So what exactly that is, I don't know, but I mean, he's like literally the chair of like the UFO cache of and parapsychology and all these other things. So like very clearly he's pretty invested in that worldview, even though he claims that like, well, I'm not going to say that I believe in it, but it's like, okay, but you've dedicated your life to like archiving it. So, I mean, it has some meaning to you, clearly, right?
Yeah, you gotta realize you can twist practically any ideology or tradition for whatever you want. You can twist or pervert it for anything. Any ideology can be twisted or perverted. Ultimately, if someone is disingenuous or whatever.
Right. And they're doing that, and he's clearly doing that with Christianity and in
Of course,
denial about
yeah,
it. Then he's doing it with Buddhism and he's denying it. So I mean, yeah. And now he's doing it with panpsychism and denying it. So
You sure this man is a transhumanist? Because I'm looking it up. I don't know if he likes the. I'm looking it up. I don't think he likes the techno transhumanist stuff. Like,
well, they say they're not, but again, go look up Timothy Morton, who's his good friend in the chair of like the English department over there at Rice University, and he promotes what's it called, ontology, object oriented ontology. Yeah.
You're getting stuff confused. Object oriented ontology is an ontology. It doesn't promote transhumanism. I don't think Timothy. I'm looking it up. I don't think Timothy Morton is promoting transhumanism.
They're promoting spiritual ecology. What would you call that?
You see, what transhumanism is man fusing with the machine. Stuff like neural augments, brain cloud interfaces, genetic engineering, stuff like that. That's what transhumanism is. That's what it is. Are they promoting that? I don't see it from what you're telling me. Like, are they promoting ideologies that could be used to potentially enable the movement towards that direction? Yes, I could agree with you on that. Yes, because yeah.
I had to agree with even Buddha. I think you're confused, Jack. You're chasing conspiracies instead of just going straight to the front door.
I mean, that's an assertion. Let me.
That's an observation.
Okay, well, so here's what it says about object-oriented ontology. Ties to transhumanism by providing a philosophical framework that dismantles the special status of humans, allowing technological enhancement to be viewed as the interaction of equal quote-unquote objects rather than a violation of human nature. I mean, if that's not transhumanism, what the fuck is?
Wait, where did you read that? Can you give me the source for that? What you just read? Where'd you get that?
Yeah, sure. Type into any AI what is the relationship between object-oriented ontology and transhumanism?
That's not even a source. It's not even a source.
Okay, well,
ask for its source, because object-oriented ontology is saying that, I think the ontology of things is like discrete objects. It's not like continuous. It's more discrete. It's granular. That's what they say.
Rejecting that human nature has a special place in the universe is kind of self-contradictory. I mean, if I'm a cat and I say, well, cats don't have a special place in the universe, I mean, that's self-contradictory in my opinion. I mean, doesn't
in your heart.
I mean, how can you? Because again, you're talking about separating your experience from your experience. I mean,
I see what you mean. You see, object-oriented ontology, it can be used to support transhumanism, but that doesn't mean all object-oriented philosophers support transhumanism. Do you see what I'm saying? It could be.
Well, I mean, sure, I guess technically, but again, people can say whatever they want. Doesn't mean it's true. Okay, so let me just read a couple more things. OOO proposes a flat ontology where humans, artificial intelligence, and non-living beings are on equal footing. This supports the transhumanist goal of integrating human and machine. Now, again, you can reject the the analysis. But again, that's what flat ontology means. So that's number one. And then the objecthood of technology, OOO, emphasizes that objects, including technological implants and artificial intelligence, have their own quote unquote inner lives or quote unquote real essences that cannot be reduced merely to their utility to humans.
So no, Jack, I want you to name me one more ontology system. Yeah.
Which I agree with, by the way.
Name me one other ontology system before we go. No, Jack.
Christian.
Okay, you need to go back and hit the books.
All right, we got to go, so we'll pick it up next
Let's get up out of here. This is a fun conversation. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate Hank. Thank you so much.
All right.
Neuro.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, show was basically produced by NeuroJack. So
no. Well, I want to pick this up next time. Let's get into OOO next time, not OTO, but OOO. So there we go.
Yeah, it's from Heidegger. Heidegger did have some strong takes against the technological system, but how his theory has been misused, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm not rejecting that. Yeah, and I'm not saying OOO doesn't have any truth in it. What I'm saying is that it's if you're displacing humans as having some special role in things, I mean, that seems like the first step to a very bad. You're dehumanizing humans and saying humans are just objects that can be discarded for whatever fucking reason you want. I mean, that's a dangerous idea. And I mean, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But I mean, to just say like it doesn't have real consequence, I think is just not honest. But maybe I'm overly vigilant. But I mean, if it's like a cliff we're all about to go off of, I think that's worth being vigilant about personally. But maybe I'm wrong.
All right, this is another show in an hour. Buddha, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, these my closing thoughts. We got into a lot of complex stuff. We could talk about it more next time. I know about object-oriented ontology. Yeah, it could be used to justify transhumanism, but not all of them support it. It's like not necessarily so, but it gets into complex questions. Yeah, we could talk about that next time. Yeah, it was a nice talk, and so I hope you have a good day.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, talk to you guys soon, and blessings to all the people that are here. And we'll get another show going in about an hour to discuss more issues. I appreciate you guys. Blessings. Tuesday night is our regular show, so please join us at 9:15 p.m. Eastern on the Machine Lives. Thank you.
States of blindness, the finest display of advanced lyrical highness. Kinematics, full pack of complex. So what's next? I inject best and dissect whatever's left. The priest prays boy, he says I don't figure. It's terror, nigga, clever with a Beretta and never bigger. The triggers lean in the scene, becomes malicious. The black large and vicious destroys of fictitious traveling blood. Cells to hit lymphatic and brain. Can't maintain the pain, then splatter it. Sustenance for glad the inhaler, the nocturnal feast. If not, I seem paler. The green ale, the lock stock for antidotes. I gather needles, gel for cells from cantaloupes. Scanoscope the heavens and hell to try and locate the medical killer sect who wrecked your whole state. The known fate's apocalyptic. That's why I kicked it to stop afflicted. Who's not gifted? Father rips shit like wet linen. The Indian becomes sebaceous. Kept women to say this remain faces. Throughout the metro, the klepto gang status. I'm iller than any serial killer. Don't add us. Protest, niggas step and try to copy, yo. I see through your membrane and gray matter. Fatter concept shattered your team and they scatter. That'll produce volley of doom inside your system. And now the killer Christian creates middle incisions. Not filling the prisons, I leave your ass Xanus. The prayer madness, crushing skulls for mad damage. The cops don't know, they can't trace my many methods for any efforts. The result, uncanny deafness. The beast nature, the ripped souls have been invader. Since the beginning of time, I make cream in like I mean it, the break hay makes the viculars and metacarpus. I extract black vertebrae and burn your carcass. Endoparasital spittle turns to brittle, little sick. And my whole clique, I have acquittals and into your psyche. It might entice the ice, niggas don't like it. Slightly, on the course, the force accelerates and elevates to the whole world obliterates. Until that time, I resign into the chamber, release anger on the populace to hang ya. I'm dropping this to bang ya, produce holes in your hollow husk with just a bust. You be tomorrow's dust. I trick parasite, walk wave, seek out. Rubine specimens are hot, honeys a freak out and eat out. Yeah, right, fat gas administered. Your minister can't protect you from the sinister, cerebral, artificial, art to war, get you like a whore, ritual parts of your tissue, break down to the alpha and omega, straight down through the mouth of your crew of fakers. Your respiratory tract snap back like with some black axe. Lungs fill up as I kill up your whack axe, and all ill acts get shellacked and tarnished. The carnage leaves my blood-stained shells tarnished.
Choice, woman with piercing voice, sever the legs of the walking dead, pro and bold move, soldier soul on an island that haunted Poseidon, wicked and violent, smoke and peppermint, Stephen King, Stranger Things, demonic rings I wear, grief of the day and murder by moon before the sacred bear, deep in a well and many will go, door of the lizard and clockwork and horror show, reefer and wine, dance of the divine, your soul is on the line. Coven of truth and coven of death. Coven of truth and coven of death. Coven of truth and coven of death. Coven of truth and coven of death.
It's eucalyptus, Ulysses' mistress, insane in the mainframe in the city twisted, going to ballistics. Sort of a wizard, sort of was gifted. Sort of write scriptures, last Sumerian scribe to survive. I rise from the catacomb, laid to a city, lay waste of scattered bones. In the center, the cathedrals was a golden throne. Open mics when they spoke in poems. Reverb levels on the highest level. Capacity unknown, travel with the storm. Trapped in the war zone.
Coven of truth and coven of death. 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 Course throughout the maze, smoke and haze, razor blades, blind you in a second, leave the old world dead and I'm here instead. Bleed out the deer, set out and he's near, hand and spear, dogma and rituals. I'm hearing the physical, deadlier chemicals carry you home. One song of the general, war tongue in the nightly sun.
What is life a major? It's like a wager between Satan and Savior. Lightsaber decapitation by nature. Encased in spaceships, travel navigator under the new stars. Just a navigator under new stars in contemplation. I await this, measurements of treasure. A goddess that brought me nectar.
Coven of truth and coven of death. Coven of truth and coven of death. Coven of truth and coven of death.